HaWah! Shabbat Shalom. We did it again. Yeah, we just getting zany, man. Don't mind us, man. We gonna have some fun today. We gonna have some fun just digging on it, man. Hey, hi to my 500 code keepers. Getting us prepared to build our fence for JoiWorld. Halal, HaWah. Ain't no greater feeling than building on your own land, knowing that you're coming back to a structure, and it takes a structure to build a structure. Halal, HaWah. UKTC. They want to know you keeping the code, because they ready to pop off, man. We're going to read some interesting pop-offness today, and we're just going to jump right into it, man. Just get your, wavy, wet boots, whatever boots you wear to cross this, little creek right here, man. Just, put on your, heavy, what's that, poncho? Get your poncho out, because we about to drip, drip, drop, drip, drip, drop. All praise to HaWah. Hey, look out for them ponchos, though. MHOE. Hey, we popping off. Five Eyes Ma, let go. Hey, you got that water flowing? HaWah say go to them mountains, man. You feel that frequency? Ain't no confusion over here. Ain't no time for the cons to be confused, man. It's time for the cons to be cons. Because we did it again. We're going to dig on some of this underwater drop that my bro 9 Spiral just dropped. There's a lot going on in these waters. We're going to get back on that Great Slave Lake, and peace to my aqua copper. Oh, man. Copper no sis. Copper no sis. Copper, you know what I'm saying. Not Copper Creation, but shout out to Copper Creation. Copper Color Creation. But my sister Copper, I think is no K-N-O-E. You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. But love to you, who dropped some great drop on the Great Slave Lake and how it is at least partially man-made. All right. Shout out to my sister Copper. I'm just gonna call you Copper Sister, but you know who you are. Drop going crazy. Drop going crazy. Oh, this is Yapa, man. It's Yapa. Abba, we just popping off. Hey, love to Alcor Mintaka, man. Breaking down some beautiful, no loop 432 hertz deep healing music. And I'm just so grateful that the fam and everyone gets to enjoy this frequency, and it's getting more and more in tune. A lot of niggas is digging on it even more, and allow HaWah for the wave, man. You know what I'm saying? We're just surfing away. And get in the drop library, because we're about to get that OSB out, near the dismount. But, hey, it's still up. We still got transition going on with the website. Y'all being real patient. You're going to see subtle changes here and there before we, really go live with the new website. But the library is still up. Aquatide, Battle the Record Keeper, what it do has helped so much with this library. And so much of you have as well. And, this is our recordation. It's our recordation, you know what I'm saying? And I look forward to redoing this library. I want to make it real easy to search, particular documents, you know what I mean? But this first look, man, love to let us find the truth, man. I always got to give love to the bro for inspiring the fact that we should have a library. And, so many of these resources as well came directly from that bro. Let us find the truth, as well as Cootie Mayo, getting to the root of it all. Shout out to the bro, Uno. Oh, man, so many of y'all contributed and continue to contribute. So we look forward to the updates. You know what I mean? But yeah, at this point, we just started putting them in, putting them in, putting them in, putting them in, putting them in. You know what I mean? So we gonna make it real cozy in here for y'all, man. I mean, y'all got a lot of drop. I'm going quick, but don't be afraid to surf the wave. Oh yeah. Just fall back and dig on it. Just dig on it, man. Oh, whoa. Whoa, look at that belly flop, my nigga. Hey, is that a belly flop or is this a belly flop? Because we talking about the Tennessee River, the Tennessee Valley Authority. We're going to talk some more on that. And you telling me, look, I got stuff in here I never seen before, man. We got so much work to do in here. I'm not even tripping. Like, we're taking our time. Drop Nation. A lot of y'all got all this, I think, on our Ether Pack 2 is most of the Drop library on the Ether Pack 2. So if you got the Ether Pack 2, you got most of these books in the flash drive that we call an Ether Pack. You want to know more about it, just hit us up after Shabbat. Music at 432thedrop.com. Music at 432thedrop.com for your Ether Packs, Presta Packs, Flat Pack, Ether Band. Look out for us. All right, let's go ahead and click on Aboriginal sites on the Tennessee. Hey, love to Clarence Moore. Hey, my nigga's been dropping that drop. Love to Aqua Type Battle for dropping that drop. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's see what we got, my nigga. Let's see what we got. All right. This is great. This is great. Because we're going to get into Hiawatha a little bit. I mean, we got, you know what I mean? We're going to get back in the Tennessee Valley Authority. We're going to get on the slave lake. We're talking Tennessee because we're talking Tennessee Valley Authority and these damn dams. And perhaps we can match up some of these Aboriginal sites with some of these damn dams, that flooded the Aboriginal sites. Because I guarantee a lot of these Aboriginal sites or original sites are now underwater. Now underwater, hey. I didn't even expect it, look, I'm surfing the wave for real, for real. I'm falling back in Shabbat, I'm chilling, I'm, just going over some great flow, man, that's been presented and just reflecting, you know what I mean? Yeah. I didn't expect to get the drop on the, I mean, hey, I didn't expect this, man. So this is good, this is good. We're gonna belly flop and see what they got in here a little bit. At least look at the table of contents, see, if it's gonna provide any type of ammunition to what we dropping on the Tennessee Valley Authority. Get past all these blank pages first, man. And then I'm gonna jump right into, well, I'm just gonna jump. You'll see. Because this is gonna make a lot of sense. All these blank pages. All right, here we go. All right, we're getting there. I just want to dig on the table of contents, man. I mean, what's the odds that we'll look into our own library and find a resource, drop an Aqua Type Battle, the record keeper, that has to do with the Aboriginal sites of the Tennessee River. Us knowing that get the last drop on the Tennessee Valley Authority. They pretty much are the OG at building these damn dams. And I'm going to get one of my sisters drop. I think it's something Dove, but, I'm going to pull it up on IG. And Hiawatha Dove, I'm going to say, you know what I mean? Because she was like, hey, they set it off. The Tennessee Valley Authority set it off, man. So, this has to connect, right? They flooded so many Naga cities. Now we got a book talking about this Aboriginal sites, right? Okay. All right. Published in Philadelphia in 1915. Ain't that right around the time that they building the damn dam? Or 1916, I think we read something. So, oh man, we right in the thick of that. Okay. Got a little map. Vicinity map of the Tennessee River. Okay. Right. Yeah, there's a lot of drop. You got Arkansas, you got Missouri, Mississippi, Kentucky, Alabama, Georgia. Same exact places. Remember, the Tennessee Valley Authority covers 7 states, right? Because they built these damn dams. Okay. Surfing away with you, my night. Memphis, huh? Little intro says the subdivision of the United States of America known as the state of Tennessee subdivision takes its name from that of 2 or more Cherokee settlements. The meaning of the word Ta-Nehisi, some of y'all dropped that. Ta-Nehisi has not been determined, so they don't know the meaning, right? The archaeology of a few states of the Union has been more widely described than has that of Tennessee, especially the region having the city of Nashville as a center. Archaeological investigations, mainly in eastern Tennessee, conducted by Reverend E.O. Dunning in behalf of Peabody Museum at Harvard University. So we just got some drop on Kalelus, how the artifacts in Arizona, these swords coming out the ground, dated in the 700s and 800s in Arizona, were also being shipped to the Peabody Museum, but it wasn't put on any record, as well as the Smithsonian. Here we go back to the Peabody Museum. All right. So the archaeological investigation, mainly in eastern Tennessee, conducted in behalf of the Peabody Museum at Harvard, are included in the 3rd and 5th annual reports of the institution with the account of the collection by Jeffrey Wyman. All right. Okay, let's get to the context. Let's get to it. Man, what is under the water? What is under all this water? And if the Great Slave Lake, is man-made, and they're saying that it's some of the deepest stuff, it's hard to believe that they can man-make anything that deep from what, I'm reading about how deep it is. It's like an abyss. But, portions of it could be man-made, you know what I'm saying? And those portions might have been cities at one particular time. Oh, man, I'm just belly flopping in this introduction. Putnam writes, one grave. It says, now let us examine the form and context of the stone graves as here to describe. Putnam writes, on one grave, which I opened at Zollicoffer Hill, Central Tennessee. Though only a few inches under the surface had escaped former disturbance, this grave was formed of 6 slabs of stone on one side and 5 on the other, with one slab at the head and one at the foot, forming a grave 5 feet 8 inches in length and side measure and 6 feet outside, the average width being 18 and the depth 16 inches. The side stones were unevenly broken to dimensions of 8 to 15 inches in width, but about 20 inches in depth and 2 or 3 inches in thickness. The two stones forming the head and foot of the grave were larger than those of the sides. All those stones extended a few inches below the floor of the grave, which was made by placing thinner and smaller pieces of stone in such a manner as to form a level bottom to the cyst. 5 slabs of stone, larger than those used on the sides, rested on the nearly even edges of the upright stone and slightly overlapping, forming the cover or top of the grave. Further examination in other localities showed that all the stone graves were made after this plan, the only variation being in the size and number of the stone slabs and the direction or dimensions of the grave. Any rock was used that could be easily detached in slab of convenient size. That most common to the localities I visited was limestone and sandstone. And, they're talking about going through and looking at your ancestors all across along this river. Bodies are placed within this rude coffin. And we're gonna read about these coffins, in their introduction, by the hijack. You know what I'm saying? I mean, look, just fall back, man. Surfed away. And with it were deposited vases, small ornaments, pearls, beads, bands of wampum, large seashells, idols. Oh, well, we got to see what they talking about, right? Warlike implements, stone, hatchets, and chisels, spearheads, arrowheads. All right, so they got all this drop that's buried with them in this coffin. Okay. Yeah, there's some interesting drive, once we start to connect these archaeological sites with these underwater cities. And I didn't even mean to be at this point of the investigation whatsoever, man, to even think about having a strong lead on the archaeological sites, man, of our people. They're opening the graves, stealing, you know, lying, changing things up, straight violating the Naga left and right. Uh-huh. Now this term Hiawatha, then you got that Shiloh. Somebody said there's a Shiloh, Tennessee. Let's talk about some of these sites. It says, though showing ample evidence of Aboriginal occupancy along its entire course. So along the entire course of this Tennessee River, it's ample evidence of original people living there. So when we go back into the Tennessee Valley Authority, and they talking about that they got all these acres, 100,000 acres they're surveying, 60-something thousand acres they're buying, just to do whatever they want with and put reservoirs and dams all over the damn place. This is what popped off. They had millions and hundreds of millions of dollars just popping off into this project of flooding out these Naga cities that we have to read in a separate substantiating document based on the Aboriginal sites on the Tennessee River that there's ample evidence of Aboriginal occupancy along its entire course. they're going to say it only has a few sites of importance. Importance to who? I mean, you think they got all the drop? Or is it underwater? They say its greatest mound at Florence, Alabama, quadrangular with flat top, a flat top, doubtless domiciliary. It's 42 feet in height. No other mound on the river approaches it in altitude. So it's a large mound in Alabama, huh? The principal and really only notable group of mounds on Tennessee River is on the battlefield of Shiloh. We're talking Sholo or Shiloh. Either way, we're talking America, man. Near Pittsburgh land in Tennessee were 7 interesting mounds, most of them quadrangular and probably domiciliary. I gotta look that word up, man. Domiciliary. Adjective, concerned with or occurring in someone's home. A study compared domiciliary care with hospital care, so it has to do with being at home. Okay, okay. What's it got to do with being at home? Like, you're domesticated, right? Were 7 interesting mounds, most of them quadrangular and probably domiciliary or, you know, home built. I don't know. Testified to former presence of an Aboriginal town. All right, so they're just saying that all this stuff was, built by original people. The highest of these is 15 feet, though in a description of the group, which has been published, the height of this mound by including part of the riverbank is made considerably greater. Beginning at HaWah Island in eastern Tennessee. We're going to talk a little more Hiawatha today because I want to start, engaging, our ancestor Hiawatha, more and more as we engage Tecumseh and put our story together. No, we are originals, not from Africa. These people have stolen everything about your culture from the Hebrew side to the Indian side and everything in between. When you look up, you realize you are the indigenous. You are the so-called Indian and India superior. You are the Ibaru tribe of Udah. You are all these titles that they split and curved into all these directions and all these, proxy people groups. No disrespect to them, but uh, that's still our grandfather's wallet. You know, everyone has to come up out of her. Everyone has to walk in truth. There is no half stepping. There is no walking in your fantasy world no more. You don't have to let us in. We're letting you know where the door is. You know what I'm saying? Whoever you are, you know. Now this Hiawatha, they say he's more in the New York, Canada, and all that popping off. You know, um, it just seems to be this connection here as well with Tennessee. You know what I mean? We got to keep digging on it. But HaWah Island in eastern Tennessee and continuing up to the river in Lenoir City, a distance of 101 miles by water, an almost continuous sequence are groups of mounds. Blunt cones in shape, few more than 10 or 11 feet in height, and most much less than that. These mounds erected for burial purposes in all probability contain, so far as is known, but few artifacts in connection with the burials, which are but sparsely encountered in them. So, they've been robbing these mounds for however hundred many years, man. They have been largely dug into in a limited way. by people having an exaggerated idea of the value of the Indian objects they've been hijacked, fostered by the presence of traders who themselves or through agents almost patrol the river. Had anything of any consequence been found in all this digging in these mounds, it is certain that they all would have been torn to pieces long ago. So he's not saying nothing's there, he's saying that most likely it got jacked already. Since Tennessee River is thickly populated throughout its length and scarcely a mound on it is out of sight of some habitation. But now, what happens when the Tennessee Valley Authority starts damming up the place and flooding out Aboriginal sites? They start flooding out Nagaville. Come on. All right, man. All right, man. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let me just go back. I saw something. Let me go back for a second. Going too fast. Going too fast. Going too fast. We're just talking about the Tennessee Valley Authority, right? U.S. government agency, established in 1933 to control floods or to create floods, because it seems like a lot of things got flooded up after the fact. They say control floods, they really mean control where the water's going, right? Control where the flooding's going to be is what that's the double talk, right? We want to control the floods. So what happens when they control the floods? You get flooded out by their damn dams. Improved navigation, such and such. Yeah, yeah, okay. Then we read it covers 7 states, right? Hijack City. Its jurisdiction is generally limited to the drainage basin of the Tennessee River, which covers parts of 7 states: Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia. Yeah, yeah. So they just came in here and started stealing everything. They had all the power on their side, right? All the authority, right? Whose authority? Whose power? And what are they finding in this place, man? No Aboriginal cemeteries of any considerable size border the river, and sites marked by the presence of stone graves are comparatively few and of very limited extent, although common report along the river tells of the Great Flood of 1867. I'm talking in the flood business. Let's go. And of succeeding, though less important ones, and describes the fields after its subsidence as showing slabs of stone, human bones, and artifacts. And although one hears of small groups of stone graves that have been plowed away within the memory of present inhabitants, it is unlikely the Tennessee Valley, we're talking Tennessee Valley, how do they say it? Tennessee Valley Authority, right? So they now have the authority in this sacred space, in this Tennessee Valley. It's unlikely the Tennessee Valley at best, but the border of the stone grave people ever contained anything like the number of stone graves formerly found in central Tennessee. Had Tennessee River ever possessed stone grave cemeteries similar in extent to those found farther north, they would have been noted and searched long prior to the great, the Great Flood, as was the case in central Tennessee, whose antiquities have been described for nearly a century. And let's get to the table contest. But amazing, though, amazing that we are surfing the wave in the Tennessee River. These are the stone grave sites along the Tennessee River. You know what I mean? Hey, I'll definitely leave you this drop. It's right there in the drop library. We just belly flop. This wasn't about to be part of this drop, but we are talking Tennessee, and bang, now we got some Aboriginal sites, some original sites to, build on, when it comes to these damn dams, man. Let's see what this contest is. A nice little intro, man. It goes quite a ways, man. Let's see. So they still talking about locations of mounds, though, man, and that's really something really to dig on. Which mounds were flooded by these damn dams. I'm gonna come right back to this one, man. Let it do what it do for a minute. We're gonna fall back and enjoy some great flow, man, by the Bro 9 Spiral, man. We're gonna come back in high with some great vibes over here, man, and enjoy the wave. Enjoy the wave. The bro just, dropped this on us. Right there in the thread, man. Hey, hop to the copper thread. Yeah, I mean, just keeping it wavy, just keeping it wavy with the ox and the aquas. And this is think about what Candlewood. So, it's been brought up a couple times about this Connecticut flow. You know what I'm saying? Someone wants to tell you a little bit about the man-made lake, largest in Connecticut, man. Okay, let's get it. Love to Gerald Booster. Is it Booster? Yeah, Booster. Gerald Booster. What it do? Hey, fair use in your caboose bone, man. I don't know where's my fair use at. Where's my fair use at, man? We're about to get some drops, so, let's make sure the fair use sign is loud and clear. Fair use in your caboose. Copyright disclaimer, Section 107, Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use purposes such as criticism, comments, news report, teaching, scholarship, education, and recon. Lego. Hey, let's jump into it. We'll call them that we had. Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to the channel. Today's just going to be a short video, a topic I wanted to present to you and hopefully get a little bit more information or a little more insight from anybody who has any ideas that pertain to this subject matter. Now, today we're going to be looking at this beautiful lake in Connecticut, and this is known as Candlewood Lake. Why I want to share this topic with you and why I want to discuss it is the whole idea of what we as man, as a society, were able to create, and then looking at the different achievements, we'll call them, that we had throughout the 17, 18, and 1900s. Now, when we look at Candlewood Lake, which by all intents and purposes appears to be all natural, this is the largest lake in all of Connecticut. This is not a naturally occurring lake. This is actually completely man-made. And I found that to be very interesting. We're going to look at a couple photographs here, and then I'm going to present to you
what the current narrative has to say about how this was created and why this was created. But I want to pose a little bit deeper question, or at least take a look at some of these more interesting details as to why this was done, or at least why we're told this was done. Now, this lake itself is not uniform in shape at all. A lot of man-made lakes or different man-made features that we see that are really astonishing, especially from the old world, they always have this sort of symmetry to them, or this curb appeal, so to speak. They look.
Now, when he says old world, he's talking America. I'm gonna drop a video, maybe for the dismount that he did based on LA, and that's his reference to America, old world. So he is surfing the wave. Let's go.
Visually pleasing. Essentially, by using a nearby river and flooding the entire valley. That's basically what we're told happened here. There was not a design to this lake. There was no sort of edge of the lake that was created. There was no shape that was created. All they did was take river water and basically change the flow of the river momentarily to flood this valley.
Wow.
Now, my first question there is why? Why would you not build a shape or build a design, build something that you could be in charge of, that you could handle, that you could manage? Why would you instead just take water from a river and allow it to flow where it would, basically to fill in this entire valley? Where are the retaining walls? Where are the reinforcements to make sure there are no leaks or any other issues with this project? Where is all of the masonry built construction?
They just dumped the water into this valley. Tennessee Valley Authority. They know, obviously, they can only flood the lower levels. This whole Oklahoma, Cherokee, pushing the Cherokee, around, like, that was to push the Nagas into the lower areas. Then to let us gather and get cozy in these areas, and then to flood the areas. And they did it time and time again, well into the 1900s, man. It's still happening, right?
That's really the question that I have here. Now, we're told that the Connecticut Light and Power Company used this lake as the first large-scale project in the entire U.S. to utilize pump storage facilities. Essentially, the lake itself was created from water that was pumped uphill from the Rocky River, and then it would sit in this lake, or the lake of Candlewood was created, and it would house all of this water that came from the Rocky River. When energy was needed, or when they needed large amounts of electricity, they would release the water from the Candlewood Lake, from this man-made lake, back downhill, which would produce the energy or produce the electricity. So essentially, this entire lake is housing water that is being used to generate electricity. It is quite a feat of engineering. However, I want to tie that back to the overall construction of this man-made lake. What we're told, and when we look at the construction photographs, we can see there is not a lot, if any, masonry being used in this construction. The largest thing that we can see, at least in the construction photographs were provided, the large, basically, vessel that is being used to pump the water. It's about 13 feet in diameter, and it's sitting along the lake bed. And then we can also see these facilities that are being created. But what we don't see is any sort of lining to the walls or the sides of the lake, any sort of construction done with masonry to basically fill in any voids or anything like that. So, realistically, this project, which was done in the early 1900s, when we should have been entirely more advanced than the 1700s, for example, we have this really simple undertaking basically going into the creation of Candlewood Lake. And I point that out because I want to compare it to so-called other achievements in construction in water that were done throughout time. For example, we look at the Erie Canal. And when we look at the Erie Canal, we can see very uniform, very well done, masonry built, large stones, large blocks, beautiful brickwork, and we see all of that was supposedly done 100, 200 years before this project in Candlewood Lake. So I just want to point that out because it definitely seems like the Candlewood Lake project was done very haphazardly. And now, why I say that and something else that leads to that narrative a little bit, at least it being kind of questionable, is what we're told was done to make this Candlewood Lake possible. We're told the workers came in and they cleared woodland, and this is according to the current narrative. They chopped down all the trees that would be in this area where this man-made lake is going to be. I mean, I can picture them doing that. There's not a lot of imagination that has to go into that. We're told that they built dams. Now, there could have been more, but realistically, I only saw and heard about 2 that were created for this man-made Candlewood Lake. So, the dams themselves, yes, there could be masonry or brickwork used in those dams, but even when we look at the photographs of them, the dams themselves are, we'll call it, a little bit questionable in their design. They seem to have been here already. They do not look like brand new construction, but it's interesting nonetheless. Now, the other thing that these workers did is that they dug out the high ground. So, amongst this lake area, we are told that the workers came in any sort of hill or area that would be too high for the water. Once it was basically pumped into this area, they basically dug out these hills or these mounds and they made them a little bit lower so that when the water filled in, basically there weren't just hills flowing under the water. So we're told that they at least did that. But we don't see any sort of reinforcement or anything like that being installed in this area. We just have it being flooded.
What city is under this water? He's talking about the construction, the masonry. We're talking about what Naga cities are underneath there that they flooded. They didn't just do it for no electricity, hydroelectricity, yada, yada, yada. These are other factors to building up their, mechanical world. But, we already had a system. We already had a flow. We already had a structure and order. The water's supposed to flow how it flows. Once you change the flow of the water, man, you change the entire frequency of. They're trying to put a new tune, right? As you see these lakes, imagine what's underneath them.
Flooded then. And I also found that interesting because the numbers that were given. We're looking at 5,420 acres that were flooded. And we're also told that.
Huh? Now, like many other times, they do this and then they start focusing on the white families that were there, how they got relocated and they rebuilt the city on the top of such and such. But think about Nagaville. We're talking about Aboriginal sites, right? The original sites, original Naga, right? Nagaville. Let's go.
Within this large amount of land, there were over 100 buildings that were owned by 35 families. Now, this was actually a village that was
100 buildings at least. But we're still talking ancient archaeology, ancient artifacts, mounds, not just buildings, stuff they're not reporting. What's the Minority Report, man? What aren't they telling us? 35 families own property within the flood zone. Man, whose city is it before these 35 families hijack this area, man? This is happening right after this, Battle of Tecumseh, Chickamauga flow, man. So they came in and moved in. It was just, hey, we're killing all these natives, right? All these Nagas, so we could move in. Hey, take 35 families and move over there. Cool. Oh, we got to flood it out, though, because they got too much drop here. All right, where you going to relocate us? That's how these 35 families are. But how did that void get created for these 35 hijack to come up in here?
That was pretty popular at the time, and this was known as the village or the town of Jerusalem, Connecticut. And I just found that to be really interesting because
Shout out to Nine Spiral, man. Jerusalem, Connecticut got flooded out, man. One more time, in case you didn't hear it clearly. Let's go.
found that to be really interesting because according to the current narrative, popular at the time, and this was known as the village or the town of Jerusalem, Connecticut. And I just found that to be really interesting because according to the current narrative, the village of Jerusalem was completely flooded and completely destroyed for Candlewood Lake to become a thing. Now,
So with all these hundreds of buildings. Okay, so you telling me these 35 families, they're running Jerusalem, Connecticut, Connecticut, Connecticut. These 35 families got the drop on the whole place. And it was utterly, totally destroyed to make room for this thing. Mainly this place was obliterated. The Connecticut, Jerusalem, obliterated.
Village that was pretty popular at the time, and this was known as the village or the town of Jerusalem, Connecticut. And I just found that to be really interesting because according to the current narrative, the village of Jerusalem was completely flooded and completely destroyed for Candlewood Lake to become a thing. Now, I looked for other areas, and there were small portions of other towns that were impacted by the creation of Candlewood Lake, but essentially, we have one community that was wiped out for this Candlewood Lake in Connecticut to be constructed because we're told that there was many buildings.
So the hijacks, the descendants of the hijack, they come in with their damn kayaks, right? As if this is their land, right? Papu Bulldogs to take down all y'all, man. I mean,
Community that was wiped out.
Monaga, parts of Brookville, Danbury, New Fairfield, New Milford, right? Oh, that's not the real name of the place. They're calling it New this and New that. What's the real name of the Connecticut? Sherman were submerged. What's the real name? What's the real drop that was submerged? Who's the real Nagas that were submerged? As was the entirety of the village of Harushalayim. Entirety. Just to get some electricity? You destroyed Jerusalem for electricity, man. That's why these people's cursed, man. They done some wicked things. But stay tuned. We're about to get into the philosophy of the hijack.
Doubt for this Candlewood Lake in Connecticut to be constructed because we're told that there was many buildings, over 100 buildings, and we're told in the narrative that these buildings were masonry and brick built. So we have this village that at least predated the lake. Yet the lake itself is built with really minimal material. The lake afterwards and the lake today is definitely amazing. It's definitely beautiful, but I don't think a lot of people realize how it was built. Realistically, they took a large pipe from the Rocky River and they flooded an entire valley and they wiped out an entire community. And it's just really interesting to me to try and understand why that was done, why they couldn't have possibly made this lake in a different area or with a different design, with a different shape, with a more uniform shape, so you wouldn't have had to wipe out an
You had to do this to make a lake? Because you needed electricity. It had to be here. It had to be here, right?
entire valley. Now we're told today that this Candlewood Lake and its coastlines encompass over 80 miles of coastline. So this is not a small lake by any means. And it's just really...
Did he just say this is 80 miles of coastline? 80 miles of flooded Naga cities? We're talking about the Tennessee Valley Authority, but damn, these damn dams are enormous, man. Hey, it's my Shabbat. Let me relax, man. Relax. Hey, man, the Oc-9 Spiral sent some drop in. I just wanted to talk about it with y'all. I'm about to get my Zion. I'm about to fall back even deeper, man, Did he just say 80 miles of coastline? Can you imagine what is buried underneath this water?
Pipe from the Rocky River and they flooded an entire valley and they wiped out an entire community. And it's just really interesting to me to try and understand why that was done, why they couldn't have possibly made this lake in a different area or with a different design, with a different shape, with a more uniform shape, so you wouldn't have had to wipe out an entire valley.
Wow.
Now we're told today that this Candlewood Lake and its coastlines encompass over 80 miles of coastline. So this
80 miles of coastline.
is not a small lake by any means. And it's just really interesting that this entire thing is called man-made. So we do have this Candlewood Lake having a purpose, being a pump storage facility, and being an area that basically provides electricity and provides power. But we also have a lot of esoteric, hidden history about it. We have an entire village that is basically submerged under this lake. And there were also many aspects of that I really found interesting, including the whole idea that we don't really have it written anywhere in the narrative that these buildings that stood in this area before the lake was here, we don't have them really being knocked down. And then if you look into other YouTube videos or other history about this area currently, you'll come to find that different scuba divers have come to find that there are large remains of masonry built and brick built buildings at...
It's hard to look underwater and see civilization, right? See life, you know what I mean? But just imagine the Naga, who owned this car. Yeah, what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Where was he going? Where was he going, man? Whenever you start seeing structures underwater, your stomach starts turning a different way. The awareness pops. It's something about that water, that mem sauce. Yosef, we popping off. That mem sauce, man. Holla at Yosef after Shabbat about that mem sauce. Hey, man, it's like, damn, 80 miles? 80 miles. A whole civilization, a whole life. And it gets deeper than this. Because once you get to the street level, then you can still go underneath that and see what's really there. You know what I'm saying? It's a world under the water, and then it's a world under that, and a world under that, and a world under that.
At the bottom of Candlewood Lake. So essentially, you have this village of Jerusalem, which once had apparently pretty massive buildings, and these buildings either were washed away or were not completely destroyed, and they lie buried under this lake. So I really would love to hear from anybody from the Connecticut area.
On November 26, 1926, a local newspaper reported, quote, the work of removing the 412 bodies in these cemeteries commenced a month ago and is now practically complete. What bodies, man? Whose bodies? Man, bodies on bodies in Calais loose. Akis on Akis, the Amaru. We talking Sylvanus to Texas. Genealogy never connects this.
Area, anybody that has been to Candlewood Lake, and anybody that has any sort of scuba gear or any sort of diving experience, if you would ever make your way to this Candlewood Lake, I think it would be really amazing to explore. Now, looking into that portion even further, we come to find that different people have it written that you cannot see anything in Candlewood Lake. I read somewhere that the visibility is about 10 feet and really no more than that. So essentially, when people dive in this area, they're basically having to bump into the remains of these old buildings to find them because you simply cannot see anything within this lake. And that also leads me back to the construction. When we look how there is no sort of layer at the bottom, how there was no walls built, how there was nothing to reinforce this area. Basically, they just flooded it. And now people wonder why the lake.
You see it right there. Candlewood's Lake rugged shoreline has a total length of nearly 80 miles. They just dump water. Oh, man. And they looking for artifacts and stuff. They got to bump into it because the visibility is so bad because it's like you just dump water and onto life. You know, it's murky. You know, you got bodies. You got all types of debris. You know what I mean? It's, man, hey. Jared Booster, man. You boosting it, man.
The lake itself is so dirty, or you can't see to the bottom, or you can't see any of the nature or the wildlife within the lake. Well, that is because how haphazardly it was built. And that ties back to the question. The real question of this whole video is why? Why was Candlewood Lake built like this? Why did they submerge this entire valley? Why did they not put more thought into the engineering process? And why was it done like this? If you have any information or any answers to those questions, or any thoughts or ideas at all, I'd love to hear it in the comment section down.
Why? I'll tell you why, man. Because that's how they do Nagarville. That's how they do Nagarville. They don't want to put no thought into it. They just want to destroy.
New England Boating is brought to you by Geico. Geico, for your boat.
Oh, my bad, y'all. You know, this is a, you know, I guess they're showing Candlewood Lake. You know, belly flop into it right quick. Oh, man. Hijack coming in 5 seconds.
Walking the dog, first thing in the morning, walking the dog. So we're just going to use the trolling motor, just kind of.
I just want to look at the Come on.
I got these two great tennis players.
Come on, man. Hey, shout out to the Naga playing tennis, though. That's all right.
Work our way around this weed flat. Yeah, we're losing our top water window, though, huh?
All right, I'm not doing all this, but you know, I just want to get a look at the, you know, from another lens of this lake and see how massive it is. And, you know, it's not like some clear blue water, right? Because it's just dumped on top of, you know, Naga bodies and Nagaville and cemeteries and all kinds of stuff, right? Just a whole other world, man. Whole other world. Damn. Hey, shout out to my Aqua on IG. Let me see if I can pull this up, man. The Dove was on. Hey, everyone hit me on IG. I don't know what it is. I just don't have, that bone, that, as you connect it to your phone and you're doing stuff on your, I just don't like to use my phone a lot. So I end up being like way, way behind, man. You know what I'm saying? On my DMs, emails and all that too. But I'm trying to get better, y'all. And you guys are real patient. My Nagas is real patient here, man. I appreciate y'all, man. Let's see what we got, man. Let's see what we got. Shabbat Shalom. Hey, hi. To my bro J Law, by the way, man. We popping off. My sister, Dove of Zion, she dropped some drop. She dropped some drop. See what the Aquas bring. My Aquas, and they the reason we here, man. You know what I'm saying? We done popped off so heavyweight with so much connectivity with my sisters, and they hopped all the sisters and drop nation, feeling the flow, feeling the order, feeling the structure of HaWah and what we do. You know what I mean? You gotta do you, you know what I'm saying? But over here we're popping off, you know what I mean? If you like it, love it, you know what I mean? If you like it, love it, man. All right. Hey, Aqua's popping off. I don't even, she just popping off. All right, let's pop it off right here. I hope you don't mind me sharing this with the tribe. Dove of Zion, some great recon. Shalom. I hope this message gets to you sound. I don't know where to start other than to explain to you as I was doing ancestry research. Came across a county in Tennessee, Tennessee, in which I was looking for nations, settlements of indigenous tribes, namely Choctaw and Cherokee. Now, I have been watching your videos of the flooded cities, even left a comment on digging deeper into the lake Oconee flooded, and we used that Recon Aqua. We appreciate you for that. Hey, how I told you, my Aquas is popping off. My research, which was only led by Amma, led me to the company TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, right? So she's right on time. Let's pop it off. My heart about failed me reading the wickedness of this government-owned company ran by private shares. So she's going to give us some details. We can only dig so much. We're going to need the whole squid eye on this because all our family is represented in this tragedy, in this travesty, you know what I'm saying, popping off with the Tennessee Valley Authority and all the other ones connected, but it goes right back to the hijack, goes right back to the hijack. Government-owned company ran by private shares, man. So who's the privates, right? For they are the progenitors of this whole entire flooding fiasco. These are the ones that popped it all by Aqua saying they built the first dam called the Wilson Dam. We touched on that last drop. It is now a national historically reserved site for being the first of its kind in America. So this I didn't know that this was the first of its kind, or that this is where it really all happened first, was popping off with this Tennessee Valley Authority and the Wilson Dam. It is now a national historically reserved site for being the first of its kind in America. They flooded the first indigenous American settlements, and we're digging on the archaeological sites. The first indigenous the first indigenous American settlers. So they flooded the first indigenous American settlements. You gotta just let that, you know what I mean? They have they playing chess, not checkers, man. They did not want you waking up and seeing what is there. They did not want you waking up and walking back into your cities. They did not want that, man. They said, let us prolong the stupor just a little bit longer. They flooded the first indigenous American settlements only after excavating them through archaeological research, right? We're reading about the Peabody Museum, Smithsonian, Arizona State Museum, all these museums, all this archaeological research, hiding the drop, hiding the artifacts and projects. So this company has a lot of Mississippian culture, woodland, okay, property that belongs to U.S. So a woodland property that belongs to the U.S. Also, it leads me to how the dams were built as war ploys against the German navies in World War I, I believe, because of the cultivation and mining of guama, which is seabird and bat poop, originally used to make gunpowder, in which they had already used Chinese, Hawaiian, Japanese, and so-called African American slavery, in which they tricked and kidnapped people for labor. Anyway, the dam was to be constructed so that the Germans couldn't block their trade paths or just vassals, period, shipping the material from gunpowder from Peru. It's just a drop and drop. Let's go. Let's go, Devil Zion. You popping off. Then I found out the Incas would historically kill anyone who disturbed the habitats of these birds because of the guama used in agricultural cultivation. These people went and mined these caves of the birds despite the sacred significance of them and the Incas and the whole community of Peru. Also, they are directly and mainly instrumental in providing the electricity to create the first atomic bomb. Wicked, these are just tidbits of the information of this on this Wikipedia page for Tennessee Valley Authority. Trump can't even take them down, she said. And Reagan was fired from his show after speaking out about them before becoming president. They'll censor you for this drop. Disclaimer, and Managa, KTC, you know how we do. Put our power first, we never lose. Hey. But this one is coming in hot and will give you a big source to digging in the flooded communities drop that you started a series on. I hope this message reaches you. Also, I'm searching the Overhill Cherokee, which led me through the spirit to all this info. They flooded all these communities as there were many tribes within this faction of Cherokee. Wow. And she's dropping that drop, man. And, some of it we touched on, some of it we didn't, man. Sister said, I'm not set up on the 432drop.com, although I have supported with buying us all. Hey, hi for your support, Aqua, and your energy, and your drop is, pure water, crystallizing all the tribe. I mean, feeling, the vibration and the emotion, you know what I'm saying, that I could tell you feel, we feel that weeping on the inside, every time we think about underwater, Negro, Naga, whatever you want to call it, African American, so-called black cities, man. These are so-called black cities, man. Okay? They call us black cities. We know we're copper color cons. These are copper color con cities. These are American cities. However you got to get it through your psyche. However you got to penetrate your heart bone. You're waking up seeing all your things underwater. Are you ready for this? You ready for this, man? Wow. Yeah, I had to tell the Aqua, hey, ha. She's dropping drop on the Tellico Reservoir. Also known as Tellico Lake, is a reservoir in Tennessee created by the Tennessee Valley Authority in 1979 upon the completion of Tellico Dam. The dam impounds the Little Tennessee River and Lower Tellico River. TVA is careful to refer to its artificial lakes as reservoir. They don't like to say artificial lake. They like to say reservoir. This lake is approximately, goodness gracious, 16,000 acres. How many miles of shoreline? 357 miles. I mean, that's like going from LA to Vegas damn near, man, of nothing but underwater Nagaville. 16,000 acres of flooded cities. Just in the Tellico Lake, Tellico Reservoir, artificial lake. But the TVA is careful to refer to the artificial lakes as reservoirs, right? Wow. 16,000. Okay. Wow. Ahab to my sister Dove of Zion. Ahab to you, my Nagas. We right here. Ahab to my sister Kappa. No, sis. What it do? She dropped this Slave Lakes. All right. So I'm just going to surf the wave right here, man. All right. Surf the wave. We talking Hiawatha, HaWah, Tanasi, Tennessee Valley Authority, artificial lakes, Aboriginal sites, Slave Lake, which says what? Because before we're talking Slave Lake, they're talking about how deep it was. Now it says Slave Lake, according to this document. Article by Cindy McDonald. There's a giant covered pond filled with microorganisms at Slave Lake Pulp Mill site. It's man-made and it's massive, the size of 3 hockey rings. This is a new addition to Slave Lake's wastewater treatment system and the source of the methane that the mill converts to green electricity. It's all about electricity. It's all about them stealing your energy. They're stealing your electricity. Stealing our natural flow. Shout out to the bro. So this giant covered pond, right, is the size of 3 hockey rings. What city is that? So even if Slave Lake in its entirety, do we still got something on Slave? Okay. Great Lakes. Okay. Now Slave Lake is also a small town in northern Alberta, Canada. Obviously, it's connected with, it says located on the southeast shore of Lesser Slave Lake. So all this is connected to this giant lake, and these are, their towns. First European known to visit the area, was this British explorer David Thompson in 1799. Right, we got that before. So they just popping up in the 1800s, calling this thing Slave Lake. The narrative is named after this Slavi tribe of Slavies, that either owned slaves or were enslaved. The stories all over the place. Okay. Now, connected with this Slave Lake, or just for a second, getting back to this Tennessee Valley Authority, we got this last time, the lost towns of Pickwick. So, different people got different perspectives of, which of these towns, are lost. So, some are saying, you know, not many of these towns are, I'm saying that the towns are, popping back up. And, some are saying that they know what these are. Some say that they don't. Their definition of lost and your definition of lost are two different things. They're calling it lost. Why? Because it's underwater. Is that their perspective? You know, uh, is it truly lost or is it just right there? And how much does it cost to build something like this? In the hundreds of millions. There's no doubt that TVA's dams transformed the valley, and made life easier for its new residents, right? For some reason, through the unified plan, it meant sacrificing home and communities for the greater good. Whose greater good and how much transformation is it anyway? Now, the flood storage capacity, they said, is for 417,700 acres. So that's at least the amount of space and acreage that this, thing is taking up. Obviously not even close to the full amount, but at least understand that over 500,000 acres of your Naga cities are underwater, man, because of these guys. They said this thing extends, 7 states, right? 7 states, right? Okay, let's get back to it. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what I mean? So, back to this teleco right quick. You know what I mean? They always try to bring up that there are opponents to these projects and that they know that they are going to cause harmful effects. But it's always beat out by some politic, some type of bill passed, some type of situation, Supreme Court, yada, yada, yada. They end up getting the pass. It says creation of the reservoir meant that several communities, we just got that, in this drought right here, right? With this Pickwick situation. That for some, it meant sacrificing home and community for the greater good. God. Several communities in the valley had to be abandoned, residents relocated, those they chose to relocate. In addition, the waters inundated or flooded several Native American sites. We're talking Tennessee Valley Authority. Oh boy, now this is about to get good. We going right in, man. We going right in. You're gonna see how all this connects from the flooding to the indigenous sites. You know what I'm saying? Back to this Hiawatha flow, back to this Tecumseh flow, really back to the indigenous Naga flow, the Hebrew flow. This all connects when you start bringing in these artifacts. Oh yeah. Oh boy. Including the historically significant Cherokee Nation town sites of Kota and Tanasina. These are all very, very important places. You see, this Kota was the most important of the overhill towns from the late 1740s into 1788. This is all gearing up with that battle of, Dragon Canoe and them, right? With 1788. Oh yeah, America's been at war 100% of the time. 1788. What? Yeah, we just talking Chickamauga. Yeah, okay, just checking. Kota was the most important overhill town from the late 1740s until the 1788. They call it the mother town, man. Then you got Tanasi, right? Historical overhill settlement site in present day Monroe County, Tennessee. In the southeastern United States, the village became the namesake for the state of Tennessee. It was abandoned by the Cherokee in the 19th century for a rising town whose chief was more powerful. Wow. What did they flood? What did they inundate? You telling me they flooded the mother town of the Cherokee on accident? They flooded the original Tennessee, which became Tennessee. They flooded on accident? They flooded these historic towns on accident? They flooded out the Chickamauga on accident? This is who they were flooding. It can't be on accident if we have documentary evidence, my Naga, that they're at war with the same Nagas for the first 20 years into the barber Hebrew word of the day. Try to tell him. Swan, right? Barber is Hebrew for swan. You have to do your recon to connect the swan into the forbidden histories of America, like we did last time. Surf the wave, get the drop. I'm just going quickly, I'm just surf. It's a heavy surf right here, right? Oh man, we already know where to go. We got to go to page 62, say 63. Let's get it right here. Forbidden Histories of America by Daniel Lowe. All this is in the drop library, Managi. We ain't updated in a while, but we got hundreds of books in there that you got to dig on. Let's get it. Oh yeah, Barber, Swan, right? And we got this last time that the Swan is the what? Yeah. See, after Nehemiah reconquered the American empire of Kalalus, and after understanding that Kalalus means promised land, which is the land of America, is the promised land, or Kalalus, then you got the Theodore Roos. All right, Theodore Roos is the leader of many people who leave the Romani lands for Kalalus. So which ones? Because the Romani, right, got the Asias on both sides. There's multiple Asias. Before any Europe is created, there's multiple Asias. Theodorus is none other than the Hebrew king of Septimania. Sept means seven. So you got the seven cities. You're talking America. They just said Kalalus. Kalalus means promised land, which is the land of America. These are the records, Managa, of your lands. Oh yeah. The son of the Hebrew king of Septimania, 7, also called Theodoric, Thierry, Ameri, De Narbonne, Makir, Todrus, or the Rus, Theodore Rus. Let's go, man. Dietrich, Theodoric, Ameri, Aishetif, Nehemiah, Naaman, Amor, Ben Amor, also known as the Theodoric king of Saxony, is Nehemiah. He and his brothers were great Davidic princes. So it's all about David, or the Prester. And David's sons were at war with each other. Solomon's, Solomon's bonds were, everybody was divided, especially after the days of Solomon, because of all that idolatry, building them altars, right? Now, on the death of his father Machir, Theodoric in 765, Nehemiah becomes the Western Exarch and leader of all the Hebrews. That's what an Exarch do. Leads the Hebrews during captivity. In this case, we're talking Babylonian captivity, Western Romani Empire. That's why you have to understand the Ramah, the pomegranate, the pomegranata. So then you got Nehemiah, he's going to war with Sylvanus told Texas. It's a family beef in the American Empire of Kalalus. Sylvanus is also King Solomon, known as Solomon the Builder. But this is taking place 1,000 years later than they would tell you it is. Oh boy. Kalalus was founded in the 1st century by the Babylonian exarch known as Sylvanus Ogam or Sylvanus Brabel, which could be Dawi, another title, as Solomon II, Babylonian exarch, right? You see this all over and over, or the Nasi, or the ruler of Sumer, a great Ramani, Hebrew ruler, soldier, ancestor of the Swanites. The Swanites is the Hebrew word of the day, right? Swan, barber, or Barbary, 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 Barber, Swan. They're at war with the Barber, right? They're at war with the Swan. They're at war, Managa, with the Swanite, the Barber, right? Hakatsi. They're at war with the Swan Knights, which are the same Hebrews under Solomon, King Solomon, under David, right in your face. In America, we're talking about Kalalus. Kalalus. Kalalus means promised land. In America, they're at war with the Barber. For real, man, right in our face bone, right? They're at war with the Barber Hakazi. I mean, it's the same Chickamauga, 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 Chickamauga. Back to the telecode. Reservoir. Creation of the reservoir meant that certain communities in the valley had to be abandoned, residents relocated. In addition, the waters flooded several Naga sites, including the historically significant Cherokee Nation town sites of Kota and Tanasi. The Back Creek inscription was discovered adjacent to this lake. And you know this has what on it? Hebrew. Wow. The stone became the subject of contention in 1970 when Shemetist Cyrus H. Gordon proposed that the letters of the inscription are Paleo Hebrew, not that Yiddish, nothing modern. They just discovered Paleo Hebrew in the last 100 years, Managa. Like, they didn't even know it existed. They speaking Yiddish. They speaking, Chaldean flame letters, right? They're not into the Paleo. But this got the Paleo on it. Do you see clearly? It's discovered where? Where is it discovered? The Back Creek inscription. Back Creek stone or Back Creek tablet is an inscribed stone collected as part of a Native American burial mound excavated in London or Loudoun County, Tennessee, 1889 by the Smithsonian. Ethnology's mound survey. So the Smithsonian is surveying your mound. Yeah. directed by entomologists. Now, entomology is like this, yeah, it's like the study of insects. So why is this insect person directing this survey? By the way, recon entomological war, and that's going to really bake your noodle. Entomological war, where they are using like insects and turning them into like war machines, spies and all kind of stuff. It's crazy. They can take a fly and, like tap into its central nervous system, and literally be able to navigate it, or a bee or whatever, dragonfly, all that stuff. So crazy, right? Crazy, right? Entomologists. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Hijack City. The inscriptions were initially described as Cherokee, but in 2004, similarities to an inscription that was circulating in the Freemason book were discovered. Hoax expert Kenneth Feder says the peer-reviewed work of Mary L. Quaz and Robert Mainford has demolished any claims of the stone's authenticity. Mainford and Quaz themselves state the Back Creek stone is so of course, right, got Paleo Hebrew on it. It gotta be a fraud. Same thing with the Kalelu's artifacts, right? But somebody, right, another Cyrus, Gordon, he proposed that the letters of the inscription are Paleo Hebrew of the 1st or 2nd century AD rather than Cherokee. Well, maybe it's all one thing, And therefore, evidence of pre-Columbian transatlantic contact, according to Gordon, 5 of the 8 letters could be read as for Judea. Right here in America? Right here in America? All right. Because Kalelus means promised land, or in one sense, or Cali, which is the land of America, right? Why would you find Hebrew artifacts in Tennessee? Why are they flooding it out, the Tennessee Valley Authority? Why are they flooding out America? Why are they flooding out the Promised Land? Why did they hijack and mutilate and commit genocide and the Holocaust on the Nagas right here in the Promised Land? The copper-colored races found here by the European in America, in the Promised Land. Ain't nothing to see here, boss. You might got to go to the Middle East to find Zion, man, because you probably won't find it in the Promised Land, I don't know what they're flooding. Where's the tabernacle? Have you checked all these lakes? Nope, ain't nothing to see here, boss. Blasphemy. Yeah, you got to get back into the 700 AD. You got to get back to the drop, right? We got to get back to the drop. Back to this Tellico Reservoir. Love to my sister, Dove of Zion, because we are all about facing Zion when we realize we're in Zion. Creation of the reservoir meant that several communities in this valley had to be abandoned, right? They flooded Native American sites, Kota and Ta-Nehisi, and they even found the Back Creek inscription nearby that got the Paleo Hebrew on it. Managa. I mean, we can't make this stuff up, right? So we're not going crazy. James Adair ain't going crazy, love to Kuda Mayo. He ain't going crazy when he's telling you that these Nagas are from here and that, they were, Columbus brought a Hebrew interpreter to speak to y'all. I mean, that should tell you something. Columbus brought a Hebrew interpreter to holler at the Grand Khan. So yeah, we gotta get back in, so much of the drought, man. But we've established this throughout the years. You know what I'm saying? So this should all be flowing nice and beautiful for the wave surfers. And the Back Creek Stone right there in Tennessee is a body bag for the illusion. Yeah. Paleo Hebrews all over this thing, man. And the Back Creek inscription, man. What's it got to do with the Cherokee and Ta-Nehisi? Look at this. Back Creek, now an inlet of Tellico Lake. If they found that, you know, along the lake, imagine what's inside this lake. Imagine what's inside this lake. Man, look at this. Look at this, man. Oh, my goodness. In the 1880s. Also, check it. It says, okay. Yeah. Let's get some context. The Little Tennessee River enters Tennessee from Appalachian Mountains to the south and flows northward for just over 50 miles before emptying into the Tennessee River near Lenoir City. The completion of Tellico Dam at the mouth of the Little Tennessee in 1979 created a reservoir that spans the lower 33 miles of the river. Damn, Naga City, 33 miles of Naga Cities, right? 33 miles. I mean, they already said they got over 16,000 acres right here. Back Creek empties into the southwest bank of the Little Tennessee, 12 miles upstream from the mouth of the river, while much of the original confluence of Back Creek and the Little Tennessee was submerged by the lake. Submerged by the lake, the mound in which the Back Creek stone was found was located above the reservoir's opening or operating levels. So they just couldn't flood it out. It was too high. This mound, and where they found this Paleo Hebrew, was above the reservoir's operating levels. That's the only reason they found it, is that it was a little bit above the operating level of this flooded out territory. Now, imagine if the operating level was higher, they would have never found it unless they were scuba diving, right? Just imagine. Just like Connecticut. All this connected with Kentucky. Con. They're looking for the Grand Con, the Amaru Con. 1880s, the Smithsonian Institute team led by John W. Emmer conducted several excavations in the lower Little Tennessee Valley, uncovering artifacts and burials related to the valley's 18th century overhill Cherokee inhabitants and prehistoric inhabitants. The Tellico Archaeological Project, conducted by the University of Tennessee Department of Anthropology in the late 1960s and 70s in anticipation of the reservoir's construction, investigated over 24 sites and uncovered evidence of substantial habitation, substantial Nagaville in the valley during the archaic 8000 to 1000 BC, woodland 1000 BC to 1000 AD, Mississippian 900 to 1600 AD, and Cherokee 1600 to 1838. And this is all the same family, man. The expedition of Fernando de Soto likely visited a village on Bustle Island at the mouth of the river in 1540. And the expedition of Juan Pardo probably visited two villages further upstream near modern Chilhowie Dam. So there's another dam up the river, man. Look at this. Look at this stuff, man. Look at this, man. Damn. They talking about the overhill Cherokee. Who does that remind you of? Who does it remind you of, Manaka? Okay. Okay. Back to the Chickamauga. Back to Dragon Canoe. Back to Tecumseh. We're talking Alabama. We're talking Tennessee. We're talking Tennessee Valley Authority. I mean, really, man, what gave these jabronis the stones to think they can just come up in here with their authority from the, you already know, hijack city, right? And say, we're going to take over at least 7 states, tens of thousands, excuse me, hundreds of thousands of acres at our disposal. 1933, U.S. Congress passed a bill establishing the TVA, thus consolidating all the activities of the various government agencies. So all the hijack was consolidated in the area and placing them under the control of a single hijack. Dams, hydroelectric generating stations, flood control, which means that they are controlling the floods. Straight up, right in our face. Yeah, man. And here they go, covering their 7 states, right? The constitutionality of the Tennessee Valley Authority was immediately challenged upon the agency's establishment, but was upheld by the Supreme Court. Of course, Hijack City upheld this because they had to flood all of these Naga cities out. They had to inundate these important Cherokee towns. And what does it got to do with the Chickamauga? These are, again, the group, the Nagas that separated from all the rest of the, people going under this title or, being grouped into these groups of people. Just call them Hebrews, right, as a general. But then you have your Hebrews that signed deals, made deals, they were of different tribes like Moab, Ammon, all the hijack confederacy, Psalm 83. You even had, your own, 12 tribes Nagas that was, hijacked in their own stuff. You know what I mean? So we were in a family war the whole time. That's when people talk about some type of black power and unity, you gotta understand it's been tribal war for thousands of years. There's no concept of unifying under some illusionary race called black. This is tribal war then. It's gonna be tribal war now. And let HaWah sort them out. But we have a code to keep. We tribal with code keepers. And we have a flow, we got a vibration. You don't see that. Then you see in 2 dimensions. This ain't for you. Because we popping off. The majority of the Cherokee people wish to make peace, right? So this group of Chickamauga separated because most of these Nagas, they want to make treaties of peace, of friendship, right? Now you got the 1778, all that stuff with the, Moorish, Sultan Moorish treaty right on the headbone of the Chickamauga. And you know what I'm saying? To my Moor brothers and sisters, there ain't nothing more you can say to this. Unless you saying this ain't us. You know what I'm saying? I mean, how far you want to go, man? How far do you want to go? You know this is Israel. You know this is an Israelite confederacy, the Seminole, the Creek. You know we was tribing up. You know you made deals with the devil. Right on the headbone of the Chickamauga. And what's it got to do again with this Overhill situation that this, Back Creek is associated with uncovering artifacts, right? Related to the valley's 18th century Overhill Cherokee inhabitants. Right. Back Creek, right? Right? Back Creek, right? We're talking Paleo Hebrew, huh? Right? Inscriptions are Paleo-Hebrew. Right, right. Back Creek. We're talking Back Creek, Paleo-Hebrew, back to the Tellico Dam, Tennessee Valley Authority. Back Creek empties into the southwest bank of Little Tennessee. Yeah. It was found located above the reservoir's operating levels. 1880s. The Smithsonian Institution team, led by John W. Emmert, conducted several excavations into your things, into your stuff, in the lower Little Tennessee Valley, uncovering artifacts and burials related to the valley's 18th century overhill Cherokee inhabitants and prehistoric inhabitants. Well, who was inhabiting this area? Back to the Chickamauga, that separated from all the Nagas that wanted to make peace with the hijack, because they knew it would lead to you today not knowing who you are. And that was worse than death for your ancestors, my Naga. To be erased? Come on, man. The followers of Dragon Canoe or Red Chief Skiagusta moved with him in the winter of 1776 to 1777 down the Tennessee River. So this is the last stand, the last confederation of Israelites, man. And they're moving down the Tennessee River, right? We're in Kalalus. Kalalus means promised land, my Naga. I mean, we didn't go anywhere, right? We're still in the same spot, right? In America, promised land. We just digging on it. Okay, what's it got to do with the Overhill Cherokee? What's it got to do with the Back Creek, my Naga? And the Paleo. All right, well, Dragon Canoe, he's leading the tribe. He's the Red Chief. Check it. They're going down the Tennessee River, which Tennessee Valley Authority has taken over, right? Flooded out. Tellico, Reservoir, all that, right? Away from their historic Overhill Cherokee towns. So before they was on the move, being pushed away from their historic Cherokee towns, Anagi, they already are flowing. And this is where you're getting these artifacts, man. You can't separate this from the people that are inhabiting these towns, man. We're talking Back Creek. They're bringing up Overhill Cherokee, Anagi. We're looking it up in correlation with the Overhill Cherokee towns of the Chickamauga. Then you correlate that with America's Revolutionary War. Chickamauga, 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 and on and on and on. Barbary, Hebrew word of the day, swan. We know we're talking swan knights, Hebrew, Solomon the Builder, going into Tecumseh's war. And Tecumseh was still fighting in the Chickamauga Wars under Dragon Canoe. And then once he passed, Tecumseh took the wheel. It's the same frequency, it's the same gang, same tribe, same frequency. This is Nagaville fighting back, man. And they kept fighting my Naga. All this is still Nagaville. Nagaville fighting because they're flooding out Nagaville. They're building damn dams by this point. Here come the Tennessee Valley, right? Authority, right? And they're doing it while they're finally going a little further out into more Nagas in the Philippines. Hey, shout out to my Filipino Nagas because they just rode up on more Nagas. They started calling it the Banana Wars, right? Hey, man, I'm falling back. I'm getting my Zion for the dismount, man. They started calling these Banana Wars, right? With the Philippines. This Boston Sunday Globe article dated in 1899. 1899. Where are we at in 1899 here? Oh, the Philippine-American War is just popping off. Come on, man. It's too real. It's too true. So we know what these Nagas look like in Mexico, right? We know what these Nagas look like in Hawaii, Kamehameha, right? We know what's popping off, man, right? Through the Texas Indian Nagas, right? We know what the Texas Nagas look like. These Toltecs, my Naga, this Texas situation is all connected with Sylvanus Toltexas, right? Toltecs, Texas, right? So these Texas wars are still involving Sylvanus Toltexas, which was the original connection with the Barbary, Swanite, Barbary, Swanite, Swan Knights, Barbara Hakadzine. It's all lining up, lining up. We know what they all looking like. Then they go into the Filipino War, right? In 1899. And this Boston Globe article with this depiction on it is from this same exact year in 1899. Filipino before the invasion. Whose expansion, man? The parasites expansion. Filipino after expansion. Look at this curly head. Looking like Tom, right? Man, this looks like Jerome, right? There's a Nagarville city named Jerome, right? I love to my sister Copper Color Creation. Get in that classroom. You see all these dark Nagas around here running for their lives, man. This is Filipino. This is their newspaper digging on the Philippines. These are little Filipino Indian children, man. Look at them. These are you. Still in 1899. Uncle Sam heading a class of kids representing the U.S.'s recent acquisitions. Kids are the Philippines, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, and Cuba. Damn. So now you see what Hawaii looks like? You see what Puerto Rico looks like? Cuba? You see what the Philippines, they all look the same, right? The same Nagas. Damn. Oh boy. Look at these Nagas. Look at these Nagas. American Indians telegraphing the Philippines with the message, be good or be dead. So these are American Indians. They're sending a telegraph to the Filipino Indians. Look at this guy. Does he look like a Filipino of today? How about that? This is wicked. What do you think Vietnam was looking like? I mean, you got to question all this stuff, man, because they changed the face of it all, right? Now here we go, right? Damn, damn. So they went to war against you. You, Swan, Swan Knight, Sylvanus, Tall Texas. They went to war against you. From the Chickamauga to the Philippines. They were communicating with each other, which means that they had a connection to even be telegraphing each other, right? So there must be a relation with this, what is it? American Indian telegraphing the Philippines, right? There must be a correlation between these Nagas if they're communicating about the hijack invasion. Huh? Because they were already being hijacked. And now they're moving in here. And look how long they're fighting niggas in the Philippines. And these are the banana wars, and they just turn it all into the banana wars, man. From 1934 to 1899. Man. That's 35 years of fighting Nagas in the Philippines. 35 years, man, of fighting Nagas in the Philippines. After that, hey, look at them now. Hey. And now they don't even look like this no more, right? But these Nagas, oh, now it's no major war, right? Sure. Tell it to the Nagas on the ground. Tell it to the Nagas on the ground there's no major war. And then now they're in Korea and Vietnam and, Cold War, Russia, Iraq, all this stuff, right? But it started with this overhill Cherokee situation connected back with the Chickamauga. And they were doing treaties on the head bone of these indigenous Nagas. And you can't say it's not us now when we have receipts. Receipts. You can't say it's not us, man. It's a more and more war if you're doing treaties on the head bone of these people. Oh, it gets deeper, man. It gets deeper, man. Hey, like I said, it's too much fun at this point because we're back. You know what I'm saying? It always gets more fun when you're back. You know what I mean? It always gets more fun when you're coming right back in their face bone. Pull up this link, man. You got all the links below. I'm just going to put them all down here. You got all the links below. Let's pop off. How we doing, man? I said, how we doing, my knock? We popping off? Oh, yeah. We popping off. The Indians. Their Manners and Customs by John McLean. Let's get it. Belly flop, $2.97. The great war chief of the Dakota Nation, Sitting Bull, gave utterance to a sentiment that is peculiarly suggestive to us in studying the Indian question. Uh-oh. You gotta ask, what is the Indian question? There is not one white man who loves an Indian and not a true Indian, but hates a white man. The noble attempts of Hiawatha. Oh, yeah, I said we're going to talk about this Hiawatha. His uniting efforts. He's uniting the tribe against the hijack in the 1500s, they say. Some push him closer to 1617, which goes right into Dragon Canoe, which is a progenitor of the Tecumseh, and the Chickamauga, the Ibaru, since to form a grand confederacy of the Indians, right? So before, they can be confederate against us, we have to be tribed up in our own confederacy. confederacy. So the noble attempts of Hiawatha and Tecumseh to form a grand confederacy of the Indians were expressive of the antagonism existing between the red and white races of men. Red, red, red. Copper, copper, copper. 1828. America. This is what it's all about. America, right? Promised land, right? The indigenous, right? Originals, right? Applied to the originals or copper color cons, right? That are just found here, not brought here from Africa, but found here. It's very important. What's copper? Well, copper's a lot of things, man. Oh, the brass, yeah, brass or copper in the script. Brass serpent or copper dragon, right? In this case, copper was originally an adjective, a metal of a pale red color, tinged with yellow next to gold. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Pale red is because red is copper. Copper is red. Look at that old crayon called Indian Red, right? Oh yeah. Indian Red. Bang, somebody got it. Was more just like copper, right? Chestnut, ruddy, not just. So when they say red, man, they referring to this copper red, this Indian red, just like they got an Indian red crayon. We're talking Indian red copper. Copper, red. Got it. American, copper, red, ruddy, chestnut. Found here, right? Okay. Yeah. We're just talking copper. So when they say red and white races, I just want to give you a perspective of red, right? Copper, red, copper color races found here, all the red they're referring to. Now, bitter and sad memories are traced by the hand of his story, relative to the contact of the red and white races with each other. The songs of the pale faces and the stoics of the woods have oftentimes been mingled together, only to be broken by the sound of the white man's rifle and the hideous war whoop of the native tribes. When the Pilgrim Fathers landed on Plymouth Rock in 1620, the brave Indian chief Samoset gave inspiration to the minds of the exiles for conscience sake, conscience, conscience, conscience sake by proclaiming in the name of the natives of the land, welcome Englishmen. Oh boy, that's where we messed up at. The language of their lips was but the expression of the language of their hearts. The first token of friendship was the harbinger of peace that lasted for many years. What peace, man? Because the Cherokee, the Chickamauga, had to separate from the rest of the greater body of Cherokee that wished to make peace. Man, you see what I'm talking about? You see what we're talking about here, right? This peace business. Oh, welcome Englishman, harbinger of peace, yeah. The labors of John Eliot, the apostle of the Indians, wow, were confronted by the hostility of the early settlers in the country. The peaceful relations at first established between the early settlers of our own country and the Indians, were ultimately destroyed by their overbearing spirit of the Saxon race. Interesting that they are giving these whites a title of Saxon when the Observations of Mankind, 1751, Benjamin Franklin says, everybody's swarthy. America, wholly swarthy. Everybody's wholly copper color, right? Dark skin, copper color, deep red, ruddy Nagas. He said the only whites make up the principal body of whites are from the English and the Saxons. So we're talking about Englishman and Saxon right away, right? Welcome Englishman and the spirit of the Saxons. He said this is the principal body of the English race, is these English and Saxons. So we got some validation. The overbearing spirit of the Saxons. How we gonna get back to this overbearing spirit? There are other influences, however, not apparent to the casual observer, which are at work, continually undermining the foundations of peace and loyalty that are being laid. The Indian tribes of the West learned by contact with each other to speak each other's language sufficient to converse on matters affecting their common warfare. But the Saxon learns not the tongue of the Indians unless in a few instances where force of circumstances has compelled him to do so. The Indian loves his own language and shows a strong aversion to the language of his conquerors. Although he may only learn some words and phrases, he prefers his own beautiful language to the foreign tongue introduced by white men. Now you got English all day, right? And he has a good reason for loving intensely the native language which he speaks. The natural language, Managa, it is so full of beauty, possessing an unwritten grammar before the genius of the white man has reduced it to writing. Oh, genius. Yeah, that's one of those words that, is a bunch of conjecture. Hey man, they said you had an unwritten grammar. What does it mean? It means it was all, all your history was maintained, right there in your heart bone, right there in your head bone, before it was reduced to writing. It is accurate in all its grammatical distinctions and full of euphonious arrangements and harmony. When the missionary seeks to engage in labor amongst the Indians, there confronts him this conflicting element, the native language. He must master it if he would reach the hearts of the Indians. And the only reason why they want to reach the heart is to hijack you, right? They want to get to that heart bone, right, with their Zeus, right? This means a vast amount of labor because it is constructed differently from the English language. In order to remove this antagonistic element, there must be a determination to grasp the intricacies of the tongue which belongs to the natives. The more I have studied the language, the stronger have become my convictions that there is a divinity in language. Something divine, right? Something heavenly. They got HaWah in the Paleo Con. We're talking Back Creek Stone, right? We're talking Paleo. A little child will enter the Indian camp speaking only the language of the white race, and in 1 or 2 years, it would speak grammatically the language of the Indians, just in 1 year. How has the language of an uncivilized people become so civilized? Because God is in it. And these people are not uncivilized. This is the ancient world. There are to be found customs antagonistic to those of the white man, which means it's against it, right? It's against the hijack. Our customs are antagonistic. We are against the hijack. Many of these customs point to a period of civilization. Don't get it twisted when they say white race, my nigga, because this ain't no color. You could be talking swarthy people included in the white title. We know that, right? It's a more and more war. Many of these customs point to a period of civilizations antedating the advent of the white man among the tribe, or predating the advent of the white man among the tribe. Their domestic, social, and political customs are different from ours, and in order to help the Indian to a nobler life, we must undermine them. Wow, in order to make them more civilized, we have to undermine them with our own our own what? Customs, political customs. Now we're inundated with it, right? We're being flooded by these damn Dans with their hijack customs, or bring them into harmony. So their domestic and social and political customs are different from ours, and in order to help these Nagas to a nobler life, we must undermine them with our own, or bring them into harmony, which means syncretize, right? What they know and what we know. And this is what we know as our religions today. Our blood Indians in former years buried their dead in the crotches of trees, the bodies being wrapped in buffalo robes or blankets. They also placed them on raised scaffolds on the prairies where no wood was to be found. Beside the bodies were laid boxes containing the relics of the deceased, and with them whatever treasures they possessed. So these Nagas trusted each other. There were no thieves stealing stuff. They were buried with their treasures out in the open. Now we are bringing them into harmony with ourselves. The people are burying their dead in coffins. Oh, wow. Hijack city. We've changed them, see? And they place them in the ground now. This may not seem much, but yet it is one of the influences at work as the result of missionary labor. So the reason why, remember I said we're going to get back to this, overbearing spirit of these Saxons, right? Because they're bragging about, punking you into burying your dead in coffins, man. May not seem like much, but it's the result of missionary labor. They are laying aside the domestic duties of the camp and adopting the domestic life of white people. Hey, they said it right. There are differences of opinions between red and white races as to what constitute their respective rights. These can only be brought into harmony by acting according to the principles of justice. Whose justice? The native religion of the Indians is at variance in many things with the Christian religion. True, there is the belief in a God, a great spirit, or great sun, but there are also inferior deities. There are prayers and sacrifices, traditions of the fall of man, the flood, coming of a great teacher. So he's kind of getting his James Adair on, showing the comparisons. He's trying to make it to Christianity instead of being compared to, monotheism, they say, or just the Ibaru flow of knowing that you got a framer and shaper, my not the great teacher. Many others closely related to those of the Christian religion. Well, why? Because the Christian religion hijacked the Hebrew customs. Bang. And yet they are, except, they changed the customs, but they hijacked the philosophy, the creator, and, all this, you know, apostles and all this stuff, it's coming right out of Joshua. He has 12 apostles, or, each tribe of man is rocking with the original Joshua, 12 men, 12 disciples, 12 followers, and they keep reflecting and duplicating that into their New Testament. And yet, there are many others that are in conflict. Okay, good, good. There's the opposition of the medicine men and the intense devotion of the people to their own religion. So you can't really point at really anything in particular. But here it is, but one instance, many. out of many that I could mention illustrating this fact. All right, so it gets into this Blackfoot Indian situation. It's kind of funny. I'm just gonna get a piece of it. Here is but one instance, many that I could mention illustrating this fact. Several years ago, there went a priest to Blackfoot crossing to teach the Blackfeet the way of life. As he was doing so, there appeared upon the scene a Blackfoot Indian who told the Indians that the aged priest was speaking falsely. He said that some time ago the Kuntine chief had died and his spirit went to heaven. He had accepted the Christian religion and accordingly he went to the white man's heaven. When he had knocked at the door seeking admission, a messenger inquired his name and then informed him that he is not a white man and could not therefore be admitted. He retraced his steps, proceeded to the heaven of the Indians, and besought the doorkeeper to grant him an entrance. On learning his name, the person informed him that he was not an Indian, but had an Indian skin with the religion of the white man. He said, "You ain't no knocker no more." You know what I'm saying? You got something else going on inside of you. You might be hijacked city. As he departed from the faith of his father, he could not be allowed to enter. There were two religions given by the Great Spirit, one in a book for the guidance of the white man who by following its teaching will reach the white man's heaven. So you know what that is. That's that New Testament now. The other is in the heads of the Indians, in the sky, the rocks, the rivers, the mountains, and the red men who listen to HaWah in nature will hear his voice and find at last the heaven beyond. I mean, that's just a snippet out of the Indians, their manner and customs by John McClain. And, you know, really kind of gives us a beautiful flow, you know what I mean, into, you know, some of the obvious distinctions and really just shows, you know, just a little clearer how they are chopping it up, you know what I'm saying, what they are looking into, you know, how they are really seeing the similarities, you know, whether they're trying to draw it into their religion or into the Ibaru, but of course we, you know, back to the paleo, back to these artifacts, these Tennessee artifacts, you know what I'm saying, where this whole valley situation in all these states, Alabama, Kentucky, Connecticut, you know, left to the Aqua, you know, we're going to keep it going right quick. Just belly fly back in this book, Aboriginal Sites on the Tennessee River, you know, and they're just looking at these sites, you know what I mean, and compare all this, man, with what we're finding all throughout this drop. It's on page 100 of the PDF. Dwelling site on Mason Island, Limestone County, Alabama, about 200 yards below the upper end of Mason Island, which is about 4 miles long, on property of Mr. J. Greer Mason of Athens, Alabama, is a landing where on the border of a cultivated field near the river, wow, is an Aboriginal dwelling site. Small proportions marked by the presence of shells on the surface. At the upper end of this site is a slight rise of irregular outline, about 600 feet by 75 feet in extent, containing much shell, loosely packed, however, and comparatively easy to dig. The maximum depth of the shell in middle or midden soil was about 3.5 feet. This rise was almost completely dug through by us. Listen up, Managa, yielding 52 burial sites. 52 burials, of which 22 were of infants or other children. I mean, what happened, right? What happened along this Tennessee River, man? What happened? Yeah, dragging canoe went down this Tennessee River. They moved him away from his historic Overhill Cherokee towns, relocated in a more isolated area. So this more isolated area was where they established 11 new towns. Where? In the valleys. In order to gain distance from the hijack, man, from the colonists' encroachments, the frontier Americans, the hijacks, associated Dragon canoe with his tribe with the new town on Chickamauga Creek and began to refer to them as Chickamaugas because of the relationship with this Chickamauga Creek. Chickamauga meant river of death, manana. 5 years later, the Chickamauga moved further west and southwest into present-day Alabama, establishing 5 larger settlements. We're just talking about Aboriginal sites along this river. They were then more commonly known as Lower Cherokee. And were they more in the valleys? This term was closely associated with the people of these 5 lower towns. Is that why they got flooded? We're talking Aboriginal sites. We're talking Tennessee River, man. And along the way, they find a burial site. 52 Nagas, 22 babies. The adult and adolescent burials, with one exception, the skeleton of an adult extended on the back, were all in some form of flexion wherever it was possible to determine. There had been, however, much disturbance caused by intersecting burials. No interments were found at the depth greater than 80 or 38 inches, except in the case of a grave with which will be described in due course. Uh-oh. They just think they got the drop on the whole squad. They're finding all our drop along this Tennessee Valley, this Tennessee River. And what else are they finding along this river? It says the description of all burials accompanied by artifacts is given in detail. At the feet was a barrel-shaped object of limestone. So there's a barrel-shaped object of limestone, sometimes called an anvil stone, 3.4 inches in height, 3.5 inches in maximum diameter. This particular stone, however, can hardly have been used where blows were struck, as the symmetrical depression at each end is smooth. In fact, almost polished, man. They just finding your things, man. They just finding your stuff. What's beneath these lakes? Yeah. Slave Lake Pulp, a subsidiary of West Fraser Mills, is 24,000 ton per year BCTMP, whatever that means, located in northern Alberta. All right. So I like how we're going back and forth to Canada, because when we get into Hiawatha, they kind of put them up that way, near Canada, New York, even connecting with the Seneca. We're going to get that for the dismount. So, yeah, they're excited about their technology on the Slave Lake, this man-made situation. So they can, they started, or the first construction phase extended from June to December 2003. So Yeah, they popped this off by now for sure. The second phase began in 2014. I'm just digging on some more about this great slave labor. Let's get it, man. Let's get it. Let's get it. HaWah. HaWah. So, HaWah is one of those mythical people, you know what I mean? Just like everybody else, they try to make him a myth, just like Moshe, just like everybody else. Hiawatha, Hiawatha, pre-colonial Native American leader, co-founder of the Iroquois Confederacy, leader of the Onondaga people, and the Mohawk people, or both. According to some accounts, he was born in Onondaga but adopted into the Mohawks. Some say he was born Mohawk and adopted into the Onondaga. Although Hiawatha was a real man, he was mostly known for his legend. And then they bring in this song of Hiawatha and, go dig on that poem, on your own. And, they try to act like he was just exaggerating. There wasn't a lot of truth in it. But it's a great poem, or song of the song of Hiawatha. All right. Now, some backstory on Hiawatha. So his mother was an Onondaga and loved her son. She believed he would be a strong and great hunter. Hiawatha soon became a husband and became a father to many daughters. His wife and daughters were killed. Reminds me of the Preston situation with David Sosland and how the wives got taken and the daughters got taken. But here it says his wives and daughters were killed by an opposing enemy, Tado Daho. Damn. Leaving Hiawatha grief-stricken. Hiawatha is noted for his speaking skills and message of peace. He was a follower of the great Peacemaker, ThaWaDa. All right, so, and a Huron prophet and spiritual leader. So this starts to remind you a little bit of the Tecumseh, and his brother was called a prophet, Tenska Hawatawa. You know what I mean? So they say his name is so sacred that in these circles, they don't even speak his name. He's the great peacemaker. He's also called Tekanawitita. All right, along with Jigan Sasi and Hiawatha. The founder of the Haduna. You tell me, Sani. Almost look like the Shani, man, with the Kumse, man. I'm seeing some parallels, man. I don't know, man. So, Deganawida or Tekawita, I just said, Tecumseh's brother, his name kind of sounds familiar with that as well, man. Okay. Hold up, man. I just want to see a little more on that. So this is a political and cultural union of 6 Iroquoian-speaking Native American tribes residing in the present-day state of New York. So this is how it's going to tie in with the Seneca flow, and then, we're going to connect some of that Central Park situation, some of that York Hill that was buried that we got in the previous drop on some of these underwater Naga cities. Black Village destroyed, Central Park. I'll leave this link for you. We went over it last time, but yeah, it's going to break down this, Seneca Village flow. York Hill flow, Nagarville flow. These are the Lyons family, residents of Seneca Village. And the Seneca were in confederation with, or they were tribed up with, Hiawatha now. See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? Yeah, man. Yeah, man. So what Rush didn't know was that the land where the church would stand, part of the thriving African American community, had been condemned 2 weeks before as part of the plan to create New York Central Park. The community called Seneca Village began in 1825. We know it popped off before that, and eventually spanning from 82nd Street to 89th Street, along what is now the western edge of Central Park. By the time it was finally razed or destroyed in 1857, it had become a refuge for African Americans. Seneca. Remember that. Remember that. Let's get it. So we just talking Hiawatha. So his wives, his daughters are killed by his enemy, Tado, Daho, Tadal, Daho. You know what I'm saying? Hiawatha, follower of this Khan. So he's following the Khan, Awada, a Haran prophet and spiritual leader who proposed the unification of the Iroquois people, who shared common ancestry and similar languages, but he suffered from a very severe speech impediment, which hindered him from speaking or spreading his proposal. Huh. I think that's the same situation with Tecumseh and his brother, except his brother Tenskawahatawa, I believe he was the one with the speech impediment, or it could have been Tecumseh. You know what I mean. So it's always just like Moses and Aaron. You know what I mean, same thing. A lot of duplications, a lot of them, man. So all right. Hiawatha was a skilled orator. He was instrumental in persuading the Senecas. So with this prophet, he was popping off. He persuaded the who? Senecas. The who? Senecas. The who? Senecas. The entire Seneca village is underwater. They built the reservoir over them too, right? So this is happening north, west, south, east, everywhere. Everywhere. Obviously, about the curse of Lake Lanier, right? You got Oscarville popping off. I mean, just research all the sunken Naga cities. Let's see if we have this link still up here. Oh, yeah, definitely looking to show low, shy low. Or we're just talking, Shiloh. Here we go. Sunken Black History. Just dropping off, some of these famous so-called black towns. Underwater now, Oscarville, under Lake Lanier, Benson, under Lake Martin. All right, the Henry McKee Islands, portions of the Huntersville, Alabama. Now they built the Gunnersville, Alabama. Now they got the Gunnersville Dam on the Tennessee River, back to the Tennessee Valley, baby, bing bang, TVA. You got Elijah, also under Lake Martin. All right, and then you got this Central Park Reservoir, and they always got these murky waters, right? Just like that Connecticut situation, Candle Lake or whatever. All right, same type of thing. I mean, these are murky too, I bet. They're trying to dive up under these. Yeah, the atrocities didn't only happen in the South. NYC Central Park used to have a black community named York Hill. The city destroyed the town so that they can build this Central Park Reservoir. Your Naga city's underwater. Residents of York Hill fled to nearby community called Seneca. What did they do? Naga, they destroyed Seneca a few years later, and they built Central Park over it. Now they enjoy Central Park like a tourist attraction, but it was built over Seneca Village. And why? Because Seneca was tribed up with who? Seneca, Seneca, Seneca. We see it clearly, right? Oh yeah. Hiawatha, the skilled orator with the prophet by his side, persuaded the Seneca. The Seneca are a group of indigenous Iroquois-speaking people, Managa, who historically lived south of Lake Ontario, one of the 5 Great Lakes in North America. Right, so this is connected all the way into the New York flow, and these are Nagas, because we just got the confirmation that these are Nagas. Come on, man. So who's Hiawatha tribing up other than Nagas? Who's Tecumseh tribing up other than Nagas? These are black communities, right? So if you're trying to claim to be these indigenous Nagas today, rocking with Hiawatha, rocking with Tecumseh, connected to the indigenous flow, my Naga, you see what it's looking like. You see what the Philippines is looking like. You see what Hawaii is looking like. This ain't changing. They're building damn dams everywhere. They're flooding black communities like Seneca Village. This is why they're flooding throughout Tennessee. The TVA is flooding. Niggas. All of these are Negroes, man. Tribes of Negroes, but it appears that other Negroes are working against them, right? And this is when we get the more and more war. So the Senecas, the Cayugas, the Onondagas, the Oniedas, the Mohawks, he's trying to get them to accept the great Peacemaker's vision. This ThaWaDa. You see the Hebrew all over this flow. ThaWaDa. 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 Yeah. Then the Tuscarora people joined the Confederacy in 1722 to become the Sixth Nation. Little else is known of Hiawatha. Yeah, they don't tell us that much more, right? They don't tell us a whole lot, you know. Yeah, they got this Hiawatha belt. Very interesting, man. Very interesting flow. Yeah. Hiawatha was very full of grief because his daughters were murdered in the fight. The great Peacemaker gifted Hiawatha with the whelk shells, WHELK shells, and told him to put them in his eyes and ears and throat. These shells were a sign of healing and purity. Hiawatha used these shells to create unity. The Wampum beads are the most significant part of the story of Hiawatha. The Iroquois nation believes that the Peacemaker was the one who gifted them the first Wampum belt, which later was titled the Hiawatha belt. And like I said, dig on the song of Hiawatha, see how it correlates, man. And yeah, it's heartbreaking when you really see clearly and say, yo, Hiawatha was tribed up with the Seneca, the same one that was flooded out to become the Central Park Reservoir. Black communities, Nagas, copper colored cons underwater, back to the TVA, back to the TVA. They got the nerve, man, to just pop off like it ain't nobody's business now, right? Oh yeah, TVA is popping way off now, right? Man, let's get this for the dismount. Best dismount of all time, my dog is Shabbat Shalom. I'ma get Zani in the ether, with my tribe. Yeah, with my tribe. Where it go? Yeah, the TVA, man, the TVA. We got a piece of this before, right? Span 7 states. We got that. Now, 1916, we got this pop offness. Love to my sister, Double Zion. Wilson Dam was to provide power for the munitions plant. So this was like the first major joint of its time. Check out the time period, World War I. Right, back to the timeline. World War I, we got popping off right at the end of the banana situation, right? Mm-hmm. Or during the banana day. So World War I is during the banana situation, right? During the Philippine situation, okay? During the Philippine situation, okay. This is when World War I is popping up. 1916, here comes this Wilson Dam, right here. When the U.S. invades Mexico. Come on, man. It's strategic. We're going to do this and do this. They're not just doing one thing at a time. They're doing 3 or 4, 5, 30 moves at a time, man. We over here just trying to figure it all out as it's happening. And it's happening right in our face bone. Who are they calling the Philippine? Huh? Who's the Philippine? Huh? You. Us. Copper color communicating with the copper color. Con on con. Another con on this island. They're passing messages, right? Man. Talking TVA. 1916. Wilson Dam. Yeah. Franklin Roosevelt incorporated many ideas of this Muscle Shoals bill into the TVA Authority Act. 1933, Wilson Dam became the TVA's first hydroelectric facility. So, yeah, first of its kind. So, in addition to the Wilson Dam, the act gave TVA the authority to acquire lands along the Tennessee River and any of its tributaries for the construction of future dams, reservoirs, transmission lines, power plants. So they just took everything in the name of reservoirs and dams. And this act gave these jabronis the right to acquire all your land along the river, which spanned at least 7 states. Wow. You saw how it connected with the Chickamauga, Overhill, Cherokee, Tennessee. You see how it's connected with Hiawatha. The Confederation, the real cons, you know what I mean? They included all the cons, including the Seneca, the Mohawk, and all the cons. Just like the Tecumseh and Dragon Canoe continue. It's all a continuation. Because whether you're in New York and Canada, or you down south, it's all happening in America. That's why you saw that depiction of all these Nagas communicating wherever they are. It's not just happening in an isolated situation. It's affecting everybody. And that's what Hiawatha was trying to get them to see. This is affecting everybody. We got to tribe up. Is what the Tecumseh is trying to get them to see. By the time they get to 1812, man, it's already happening. The Tecumseh is trying to, let everybody know. It's going to take the whole tribe. We're going to have to tribe up. But of course, you got the haters, man. You got those that want your things. You got those that want your stuff. Ojibwa, he makes rivers, they say his name means. He makes rivers. Wow. So they make dams. He makes rivers. Legendary chief, Onondaga tribe, North American Indians, to whom Indian tradition attributes the formation known as the Iroquois Confederacy. And I believe they say that we the people comes out of this, right? All their constitution, all this stuff is popping off out of this. And this miraculous character, Hiawatha, was the incarnation of human progress and civilization. The incarnation of human progress and civilization. But they're telling us they got to civilize us. But you got a civilized leader popping off in the 1500s. We need to be civilized, right? He taught agriculture, navigation, medicine, and the arts, conquering by his magic. What? So he's a real magi, right? Because with his magi, he got all the powers of nature that war against man. Back to that song of Hiawatha. So he had the drop on all the magi, all the powers. This is why they had to flood all this stuff. This is why they had to flood all this stuff, man. Best dismount of all time. I'll leave this for you. Angelfire.com. Got a drop on HaWatha, the unifier. Mohawk flow. Hiawatha or Hiawatha. Hi and HaWatha. See that HWA? HaWah. So let's go. Means he who makes rivers. River travel was the way people got around in the time of Hiawatha. Hiawatha wanted to unite the nations in peace. Hiawatha was a statesman, lawgiver. Who's keeping the code? Who got the law? Who's putting down the law? Shaman, unifier, who lived around 1570. He was born a Mohawk, but lived in the Onondaga. So some say he converted to being a Mohawk. This says he was born a Mohawk, but then was adopted by the Onondaga. Okay, so okay. When his own tribe rejected his teachings, right? His code, okay. His efforts to unite the Iroquois tribes was opposed by Onondaga chief Atoa Tohoro or Tado Taho. When he eventually defeated the chief, and the chief killed Hiawatha's daughters in revenge. So he defeated this hijack, and then he got revenge, man, like a, you know what I mean, by killing his daughters. And the other document said his wife, he was troubled by the hostilities that disrupted social harmony. He spoke about the senseless killings and the dangers these acts of violence brought to the survival of the Iroquois people. Again, more and more war. Hiawatha had a vision about the future of his three daughters, whom he loved dearly. He was aware that his enemies might use violence on his daughters to make him lose heart, and died, and did eventually split from his tribe and become a wanderer. Wow. Let's just get down to this prophecy. The meeting of Hiawatha and Wida, the man of the north, was foretold in the prophecy. These men had much in common. They both were wanderers and they both sought peace. In fact, Wida was known as the Peacemaker. He was a member of the Wendat Nation, Hurons, member of the Iroquois Nation. The members of the Iroquois Nation hold the name Daganawida as sacred. His name is only allowed to be spoken in ceremonies other they call his peacemaker, prophet, or man from the north. Oh man, y'all ready for this, man? Oh man, for the dismount. Is y'all ready for this, man? A Lego Immaculate Conception. Oh my goodness. Well, I guess we might as well belly flop through one of the greatest dismounts of all time. You know what I mean? We could have never seen it coming to this, right? Let's see how this compares to what they wrote into their New Test, their religion. Everything is based on this Quetzalcoatl flow, this Hiawatha flow, Tecumseh flow, Joshua. All this is all indigenous history, my nigga. We just, you know what I mean, putting two and two together, man. We just seeing clearly, and the beauty of it is all validating our Tanakh. It's validating our code, even with the, stuff they tried to flip around in the Tanakh. They couldn't flip around the code. No power before your power is no power for your power. No killing your brother, no stealing from your brother. This is basic code. They had to include it. They had to, my Naga. You know what I'm saying? So when we come in, we see Nagas uniting around the code, lawgivers. That should ring a bell to us. We should be popping off. Now, these Wendots or Hurons lived on the north shore of Lake Ontario in what is now known as Kingston, Ontario. So, you got the Kings living in Kingston. We're talking about the Khans in Canada. Wada's grandmother was approached by an angelic presence. Call it a dragon. Let's go. He got a dragon approach. A courier from the Great Spirit. A courier from the Great Spirit, right? HaWah, right? Takanya Wagan. Degana Wida's grandmother was told that the holder of the heaven or Great Spirit was sending a messenger to be born of her virgin daughter. Right? So grandma's told, oh, well, your daughter's gonna have a child, even though she's a virgin. He wants to be the incarceration, incarnation of the Great Spirit. Have you heard this story anywhere before? Have you heard a story about the Great Spirit or God coming in the flesh? Any flesh being an incarnation of the Great Spirit, the Creator. Has this story been reflected or duplicated in any popular manuscripts? He was to be the incarnation of HaWah and would do his work on earth. The messenger's goal was to bring peace on earth. ThaWaDa, Wada's mother. And remember the message, this JC in the New Test, he's talking about he's here to unite the tribe, right? But it's not really making sense because it ain't like he's really uniting Judah and, Ephraim and Manasseh. He's not really going after these tribes aggressively, like, okay, tribe of Manasseh, listen up. Tribe of Ephraim, listen up. He's just talking to the Gentiles and this. But he's supposed to be uniting the 12 tribes, he says, Matthew 15 or something like that. And he has the dog. The dog woman comes up to him and, does all her little speech. Heal my daughter and all this stuff. He said, I can't heal it. Can't heal no dogs. So even in that reflection, he ain't dealing with these dogs, right? She says, even the dog got to eat the crumbs for the master's table. I mean, hey, this is all your new test, right? So, yeah, his message, as this messenger, he's supposed to be just for the 12 tribes of Israel. That's what he says. So for them to kind of paraphrase the message of, this messenger here, his goal is to bring peace on earth. For what's peace? Is he talking about hijack peace? Would the Great Spirit be talking about hijack peace or your peace? And if it's your peace, that means he came to bring war on the hijack. Big facts. Wada's mother, like the Virgin Mary, had an immaculate conception. Wow. So this is an indigenous story reflected into the New Test. She had never been with a man when ThaWaDa was born. His grandmother tried to kill him. She was not sure if he might have conceived by means of an evil force. She tried to throw him. It's like Mary was almost stoned, right? JC had to go hide in Africa. She tried to throw him into the frozen lake after she cut a hole in the ice. The baby did not sink or drown. The grandmother tried to kill the baby 2 more times. He would appear back in the bed with her and her daughter. Now the grandmother knew he had a special power and gave up on trying to kill her grandson. Hiawatha's only defect was his stuttering. Oh, so before they said that the prophet had a stuttering problem, ThaWaDa, and that Hiawatha was a great orator. This story flips it and says Hiawatha has a stuttering problem, just like Moshe, right? And back to that skin, Tenskawa Tawa, or Tecumseh and his brother, the prophet. One of them had a stuttering problem too. Gotcha, okay. He had a speech impediment. He was a model child, but others thought him to be too good, though he was an outcast among his people. Who does this remind you of? They could not understand his goodness. ThaWaDa left his village in a canoe. Whoa. Who's that remind you of? Dragon, canoe? led a band of Cherokee warriors, right? He was said to disappear in a canoe or something like that. I mean, or we're just talking Dracon, but let's go. Oh, it's getting good to us now. It's getting good to us. Yeah. He left his village in a canoe. The canoe was made of a white stone. All the villagers mocked his canoe, saying that such a canoe would surely sink. He said was if he was who he claimed, that the canoe would float. That people thought he was bold to claim to be the Great Spirit. However, the boat did float off and never sank. Like many Christian saints, ThaWaDa loved animals and they loved him. He was the Native American Saint Francis. And he could even talk to animals like Saint Christopher or Columbo. Oh, the dog-headed Saint Christopher Columbo. And Jesus was even said to talk to animals. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, yeah, they got more to it, man. You see it, man. You see it. You see it, man. I don't need no more, man. I'm out of here, baby. They making phantoms and duplications. Immaculate conceptions, man. Immaculate conceptions. We got canoes popping off, reflecting. Remember your three major chronological time shifts. They're shifting your time around so you could be, you know, um, emerging or, and converging. Very similar people and possibly the same thing with this dragon canoe. Oh yeah, dragon canoe. Dragon canoes forces were sometimes joined by the Upper Muskegee, Chickasaw, Shawnee, and Indians from other tribes, along with British loyalists, agents of France, Spain. So, he combined a lot of, mofos that wanted to go against the hijack. Back to that Overhill Cherokee drop. And they dig on his canoe, somewhere. But they say he died while celebrating a recent victory by one of their warlords. After dancing all night, he just died. That's what they say. Oh, he just had a heart attack. Come on, man. Something with this canoe business, though, for sure, we gotta look into. But, dig on this, 'cause it's gonna bring you, even deeper into that Tennessee Valley. Oh, boy. All these artifacts, all this drop. Just keep surfing the wave, man. Yeah. I imagine infinity between Jews and Native Americans is the subject of Elizabeth Fenton's new book, Old Canaan in a New World. Or we just talking about the old world. Americans and the lost tribes of Israel. She tells of the story in which she calls the Hebraic Indian. They're finding Hebrew. We're talking Kalelu's, Promised Land. Theory, the hypothesis which Europeans invented upon arriving in the Americas, that the people they met there were actually the lost tribes of Israel. In America, huh? According to the Bible, after the Assyrians sacked the north kingdom of Israel, its 10 tribes were exiled. Centuries later, the Jewish historian Josephus cryptically reported that they were flourishing beyond the Euphrates, and an immense multitude exiled from history. They became a legend whose return would herald the Messianic age. A millennium and a half later, the lost tribes myth conveniently answered one of the New World's most vexing problems. Who were its inhabitants? So this is the biggest problems they got with you, trying to figure you out. Who were the inhabitants? And where could they have possibly come from? They are already home. We are not lost. We're lost in our mind bone, but we are found in our heart bone, because the code is now written on our heart bone. Jeremiah 31. The lost tribes and indigenous Americans made a convenient couple. Okay. At least for confused Europeans, a history without real people, for real people without a history. Wow. Ain't that saying a lot? A history without real people, for real people without a history. Damn. And you get the drive, man. I mean, I hope you seeing clearly. Now, I know my noggins are seeing clearly. It's a beautiful ride we're on, man. I mean, we popping off. Shabbat up, Shabbat Shalom from LAPhamsQuarterly.org, LAPHAMS They got the little timeline popping off, but right here they got this Hiawatha belt. And we just heard about the Hiawatha belt, woven from nearly 7,000 purple and white shell beads. The Hiawatha belt records the creation of the Iroquois Confederacy. It is named for and traditionally said to have been woven by Onondaga chief who convinced the 5 nations to unite, or 6, with the Tuscarora flow. Along with 11 other wampum belts of historic importance, the Hiawatha belt is returned to the Onondaga Nation in 1989. Is this the real Onondaga Nation, my noggin? By the New York State Museum, which had purchased it a century earlier to much controversy. We're just talking this belt. Is it, just a design, or is it some type of encoded code situation? Is it some type of code, some type of history encoded inside of it? We're just talking the fringes, man. Yeah. It records when 5 warring nations, the Seneca, the Nagas, York, Hill, Seneca Village, now Central Park, Reservoir, Cayuga, Onondaga, Oneida, Mohawk, buried their weapons of war to live for peace. Man, it's the kind of symbol we need. Whether we talking blood, crib, GDBD, what I mean, whatever in between, like, we gotta unite, Manage. Your adversary is a common one, man. They got us fighting each other, right? The real ones gotta unite, man. And that's beautiful. This Hiawatha belt is extremely old. The belt was created at the beginning of our Confederacy of Peace. We do not know when this belt was we do not know when this belt was created, but we know we have had this belt long before the French, Dutch, and English. And so they don't even know when it was created. They're just guessing. And it was returned to this, Onondaga nation of today, but they don't even know when it was created. So this is another Naga artifact that the hijack appears to be holding. And we talking Hiawatha. We can't talk Hiawatha without talking, this Owaspy glossary. One of the coldest glossaries, dictionary flows, I've seen in any manuscript, document, book, whatever, what I'm saying. But when it comes to Hiawatha, they pronounce it Hiawatha. Reminds me a lot of the Hiawatha, Hiawatha River, what I'm saying? And so, look, I'm out of here. I'm about to get my tea and just, enjoy the water. But just dig on this glossary on the way out of here, man, for the quadruple dismount. You know how we dig it. This is the Owaspy, they got their own Bible, their own flow, and it has some drop in it, man. a lot of interesting parallels and flows, and you got to be grounded, you know what I'm saying, in your foundation, though, because they got a lot of hijack as well. But the glossary, I mean, the glossary is what really kind of made me pay attention. The glossary is what made me pay attention. And, I'm just going to leave it. You can dig on it. Actually, it's in our library at 432thedrop.com. Password is 1234 to get through the door. Now, they pronounce Hiawatha. See it right there. Let's get a little bigger. You see it also spelled Iwata, like water. Alright? Like ah or ha, wa, ta. Hawata. Hawata. And you telling me this same Hawata or prophet, connected to it, is supposed to be some immaculate conception, walking in the flesh of the Great Spirit, you know what I'm saying? Like, he just talking Hawata, HaWah, Hawata, right? And look how they describe in the OSB dictionary. A North American Indian, a kind of Abraham, huh? With whom he was contemporaneous. What does contemporaneous mean? What does American mean? Are we talking that copper? Okay. Contemporaneous. What does it mean? Living or being at the same damn time. Now, this ought to bake your noodle for the dismount. HaWah. HaWah. HaWah is Hiawatha or Hiawatha. He is this Indian is a kind of Abraham, man. Now, what's at Abraham? Ain't all the nations coming out of Abraham, Your seed shall be like the stars of heaven, Some people call him the first Hebrew, but of course, they're just using that word loosely, right? We're talking about a progenitor, right? So he's a kind of Abraham, but here's the kicker. He lived at the same time as Abraham. He's contemporaneous with Abraham. He's living at the same damn time as Abraham. And we got him popping off in the 1500s. History has a lot of explaining to do. Is the real Abraham Hiawatha? Yeah, we just popping off. I'm just going to leave it right there. I do want to come into OSB another time. I'm going to belly fly right into this chapter of the OSB called the Book of the Ark of Bond, which breaks down Capelia, Moshe, and China. And all these are contemporaneous according to the dictionary. Even when you go to China, they spell it Chine, but this is where they're getting this China from. Right here, he's a deliverer, a man of China. Hey, where's China? Where's the Khan? Let's go. He's contemporaneous with Moses and Capelia. Who's Capelia? Yeah, I mean, who's the Cappadocians? Who's Mosach, the founder of the Cappadocians? Who's Capelia? Who's Moshe? Who's Kana? China. He was to China a great deliverer. China is a deliverer. He was an Isu by birth and wrought miracles. The country China was named by him after himself. They're saying China was named by him after him. After his death and his body was reduced to ashes, they say Jehovah, or, the creator, But you got to be careful in this book, because they got a lot of titles about Lord gods and all different type of lords. But the Creator caused the wind to gather up the ashes and restore China to life for 7 days. Oh man, so he was resurrected, just like JC. He came back to life after death for 7 days, during which time he preached before the kings and the people. Who does this sound like, my naga? Who else was resurrected after death? Come on, man. That whole New Test is straight wing wham, man. Straight duplicates, phantoms, and reflections of real Naga history, whether you're talking China, to Hiawatha, to Tecumseh, to the real Joshua, to the real David, my Naga. Let's go. I mean, Eleazar flow. It's all happening. Ezekiel flow, Daniel flow, all that's duplicated in that slither you call New Testament, man. And that hijacks you into a whole nother God who is now having his own resurrection, his own immaculate conception. HaWah already popped that off. China already popped off this resurrection after death. He popped off for 7 days where he preached before the kings and the people. Then the Creator sent down a ship of light and bore China up to heaven, man. We talking dragons, man. We out of here, baby. I said we out of here, baby. And like I said, we're gonna get on this Moses China Capilia situation and just get down with the get down, man. We're just gonna talk about it. You know what I'm saying? So look out for us as we, get back in the WASP. I want to make sure before we get out of here that I give special AI to all my Nagas, leaving great comments, popping off, man, with all the drop we doing, keeping up with us, especially the ones, leaving comments on this drop with, rest in power, my Naga, you know what I'm saying? Anthony Dwayne Hughes, and I appreciate all your love, man, and, what I'm saying, everyone feels like they've gone through something very similar. I'm glad I shared my testimony. We appreciate the story, letting us into your story. Much I've dropped. And I appreciate you, my Aqua Shamar, and all my family, man, tapping in, giving their condolences, and, just sharing the AI. Copper knows, sis. That's I knew I had it. She dropped a lot of this drop for today as well. AI, Copper knows, sis. I know it's hard to talk about, but you are really helping me to not feel so alone with my own trauma I'm dealing with. Thank you so much. All praise to the Most High. I'm a Abba, Mother, Father. Much love. That's what I'm talking about, man. That's what we talking about, man. Digging on the drop, Con. If up is straight, then there has to be a reason why I get along with people who are straight up, because they keep it plain and authentic 100% of the time. Halal, HaWah, ThaWaDa, MHOE, KTC, every day. Hey, man, shout out to the cons. Hey, shout out to my Nagas, because my Nagas continue to make Naga moves. My Nagas continue to make Naga moves, man. And because of you, we popping off ourselves, making them Naga moves, man, in real time, man. And we got boots to the ground, pretty much, every month. That's the goal, is to get Nagas out here building and continuing to build, in the flow, with the flow. Hey, A-Hop to my fence building Nagas. First one's touching down, man. And I mean, I can't be more proud, to see Nagas come together, boots to the ground and, build with a similar flow in code. And they want to see a fence build. We want to see a fence build. Everyone has a big smile and we say, oh man, you building a fence on an entire acre of land. I've never seen a beautiful cedar fence like that covering an entire acre. We don't know what it's going to cost. We don't know what's going to take, but we started it. And no matter how long it take, my noggin, we gonna finish it. Hey, allow HaWah to the cons, because I know we are inspiring as we continue to spark off with you. And this fence is beautiful, man. Love to the family. Hey, Aqua Abia, you already know. Charmaine, Tybezan, Chef Candy, Clay, Ma, you know what I mean? Dizzle, J Law, my fence building Noggins, man, they already stepped out. And, touch JoiWorld a special way, man. Hezekiah, hey, we popping off. And all my contributors, we got Sheds, Landon and JoiWorld, boundaries being, measured out. And, the beautiful thing is that, we got our fence, man. And this is the cornerstone. This is the beginning of it. See how beautiful it is. And it's going to continue to flow like that all the way around. And eventually on the inside, we'll paint it blue, purple, red on the inside, So when you pull up in it, it's just going to spark off with beautiful colors. The droplets are going to pop it off with beautiful colors and artistic flow. Hey, hop to the droplets. This is what we've got so far in such a short time. Please continue your contribution. These materials aren't cheap, but we want to make sure we have a fence that lasts, a cedar, beautiful fence that lasts a long time so that we can look out in the sunset, and see our beautiful fence popping off. Blue, purple, red, white linen, gold thread. Hey, allow HaWah to the tribe and ThaWaDa for all your beautiful comments. Keep the water flowing. You can click the link below to support our fence for JoiWorld right after Shabbat. Yeah, everyone's dropping on this Tennessee Valley Authority. So this is what happened during the 1937 flood of Paducah, Kentucky, better known as the land of Cherokee Chief Paducah. The city was sold for $5. Wow. Wow. Yeah. My noggins, y'all popping off at all time. Y'all popping off. You appreciate the drop, and we appreciate you. Oh, you got some drop on the Grand Canyon copper nose, sis? I wonder if we can get it. Oh, man. I know time is of an essence. Maybe we can just get like a couple. We were talking about New York. I'll also leave you with this. Be careful because they spraying just like they've been spraying. But the Department of Homeland Security and friends dispersing harmless substances. We might have to do a whole new drop on this. Love to Dabu 777 who just did a drop on this. You might have seen it in the news this month. The DHS and MTA and a bunch of other important organizations are doing one of those internal or entirely trustworthy biosecurity experiments in New York and spraying entirely harmless. You believe it? You believe it's entirely harmless? You think it's entirely trustworthy? Trustworthy, my not. They spraying harmless stuff on the subway and in select populous locations, but it's entirely harmless and it's trustworthy. In populated locations, on subways, and it's just a bunch of stuff. The airflow and dispersion study will simulate the aerosol release of a biological agent in a densely populated urban environment. Come on, man. You think it's a game? Think it's a test? What are you doing? Simulating airflow and dispersion of aerosol, biological agents, poisons? You're simulating the disbursement of poisons in a domestic situation. According to the DHS, it would take place at Times Square, World Trade Center Complex, Union Square Park, Union Square subway stations, as well as Oculus Transit Hub. Managa is coming to a place near you. Make no mistake about it. Hey, Dabu 777, you got the link. We talking Central Park. They still are spraying the Nagas in urban environments, right? Keyword, urban environments. And Copper Gnosis left us with this. Why not, man? Why not? Let's get at least a couple minutes into this Grand Canyon flow. Grand Canyon flow. And wow, now we talked all this underwater lakes, cities, Tennessee Valley Authority. We got a better grasp on the situation and a better place to continue, especially as we get into our Prester investigation. Because we're talking rivers, lakes, and valleys, my nigga. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, love to Brian's Mysteries and Adventures on the Trail. Let's just jump in and talk about this Grand Canyon for a couple minutes for the dismount.
Teddy Roosevelt, who traveled to the Grand Canyon in 1903 and really just fell in love with it and wanted to keep it as a, preserve it as a national monument.
Oh,
Theodore
yeah.
Roosevelt was so taken with the Grand Canyon, he said, "In the Grand Canyon, Arizona has a natural wonder which, so far as I know, is in kind absolutely unparalleled through the rest of the world." In 1908, he declared the Grand Canyon a national monument, but the bill to grant national park status to the area wasn't passed until 1919 and signed by then President Woodrow Wilson, who, as rumor has it, never even went to the park. The first year the park opened in 1919, it drew about 44,000 tourists. Today, it averages drawing about 6 million people from all over the world. It's pretty crazy. One other interesting fact before we get started, there is a rattlesnake called the pink rattlesnake that only lives in the Grand Canyon area. The Grand Canyon is 270.
And notice he said, it's unlike anything in the world, these natural wonders. And then you got Woodrow Wilson, and now you got the Wilson Dam, and Roosevelt signing it over in 1916 for these, reservoirs, and this Tennessee Authority situation, 1916. I mean, all this is happening at the same damn time. Then you got G.E. Kincaid excavating the Grand Canyon in the 30s. You got Charles Manier and Ben excavating Arizona with the Kalelus artifacts in the 30s. You got F. Amadeo Giannini doing stratospheric experiments with the Navy, finding more land beyond the poles in the 20s. I'm not in the 1900s. It's all happening.
77 miles long and 18 miles wide at its widest part. At 1.2 million acres, the Grand Canyon is the 11th largest national park in the United States. All right, guys, so let's get into the first story. And this story happened back in the early 1900s.
1.2 million acres, and it's a whole city. In the book, Red and Black Peoples, Jack Forbes, he got a whole flow on this, where he's saying it's only, 3 or 4 habitation sites have been excavated out of thousands. So they found over 3,000 habitation sites within this 1,200,000 acre situation. Wow.
1800s, a man by the name of Mr. Kincaid. He was an archaeologist, and he was apparently working for the Smithsonian Institute. He was hired by them to explore various western states and, just do some archaeological digs. His trip had consisted of various places in Wyoming, but on this particular trip time, he was in the Grand Canyon. And he started his trip at the Green River in Utah, and then he floated down the Colorado River through what's now known as Utah's Canyonlands. Now, this story is all based on a newspaper called the Arizona Gazette, which published an article about him. They first published an article about him doing his study, and then a couple of weeks later, they published another article. And what happened was he was floating down the river, and he saw sort of a cave that looked like it was almost impossible to get to. Sort of now where the Lake Powell Dam would be, but you have to remember back then there was no man-made structures, but it was in this general vicinity, and docked his little boat and looked around and figured out
more damn dams, Hoover Dam, all these dams, man.
A way to get up to this cave, because he knew that this land was government land, but he thought, well, the cave looks like it could be something interesting, and I'm on this quest. So he went up into this cave, and he saw that it went down pretty far, so he went in. As Mr. Kincaid made his way through the narrow passage with his little lantern, he was just taken aback by what he saw. He followed the narrow passageways, and as he got further into the cave, it was like an archaeological dream come true. He saw all these incredible valuables, gold statues, all this weird writing on the walls, which he reported said looked like hieroglyphics. Now, I'm going to quote from the Gazette newspaper article. He said, according to the story related to the Gazette by Mr. Kincaid, the archaeologist of the Smithsonian, he made discoveries that conclusively prove that the race which inhabited this mysterious cavern, hewn in solid rock by human hands, was of Oriental origin, possibly from Egypt, tracing back to Ramses. If the theories are born out of the translation of the tablets engraved with hieroglyphics, the mystery of the prehistoric peoples of North America, the ancient arts, who they were and whence they came from, will be solved. Egypt and the Nile and Arizona and the Colorado will be linked by a historical chain running back to the ages, which daggers the wildest fantasy of fiction. And basically what he found was just, it would be like finding an ancient Egyptian tomb. He said that there was a golden tomb that looked like a mummy, and there was various mummified bodies. He went down about 1,400 feet below the surface. There was a long main passage that he delved into and found another mammoth chamber that radiates scores of various passageways. There was all kinds of religious symbols and gold, and it was just amazing the things he reported finding. He said the chambers just went on and on. He estimated that, thousands of people could have lived down here, and he had no idea how all these artifacts came to be in one spot. And he said that if he had to estimate, there would have been like hundreds and hundreds of rooms and passageways that were just covered with these intricate wall paintings.
Yeah, you said thousands of people live down here, man. You're talking about in the Grand Canyon, and you're talking about Egypt, Managa. If you got Promised Land here, you got Egypt here. You dig? If you got Israel, you got Egypt close by, right? It's not across the Atlantic, man. Oh, we got to retell the entire story.
Paintings and hieroglyphic-like writings, and he obviously was just ecstatic. He couldn't get, this was like a Smithsonian archaeologist's dream. So of course, he made his way back out through the cave and couldn't wait to get back to, tell his story. So he went back out through the myriad of various tunnels from whence he came and down to his little boat and raced back to town as soon as he could to tell his amazing story back to the Gazette. Here's where it gets bizarre. After he went back and reported the story, a few days later, apparently he made a retraction. Then the Smithsonian claimed that they had never heard of him. And a guy that Mr. Kincaid had been traveling with, who was also working with the Smithsonian, he was gone. And then Mr. Kincaid, basically a couple days later, just vanished into thin air and was never heard from again.
Wow.
And if you go back to all the Smithsonian records,
never heard from again, huh? Flooded out, inundated.
There's no documentation of him ever existing. This story is just too interesting to write it all off as just fake news. John Wesley Powell was the first explorer of the Grand Canyon, and he noted numerous caves in the Grand Canyon on his way down the river. He and his men definitely discovered remnants of previous civilizations, including well-worn paths and various ruins with different writings on them. And it's also noteworthy that the Hopi Indians who lived in and around that area say that their ancestors once lived in an underworld in the Grand Canyon till dissension arose between the good and the bad, and the people of the heart and the people of the two hearts. So there's many different accounts that lend credence to this whole story. People having similar stories, and the thing that I just find so bizarre is that he just disappeared from the earth, never to be heard from again. And yet his story was so documented with so many details of finding these sculptures and these ancient artifacts. And I don't know, I just find it very bizarre that the Smithsonian would have him print a retraction and then he just disappears. So I don't know, the area in which he supposedly found this cave is in the area of the Powell Dam. That, interesting enough, is all government land, even before the Powell Dam was built. And so no one can get near it or around it. And ironically enough, when they were building the Powell Dam, there was a tramway that was built, but it wasn't built anywhere near the dam. So it really would have had nothing to do with building the dam. And a lot of people think that they used that tramway to have people go up, other government people go up and unload the artifacts out of the cave and use that as a railing system to get them out. But I don't know, this was just such a crazy story to me, and obviously I wanted to share it with you guys because I just found it so fascinating. And I'm
Hey man, we appreciate that. We got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of digging to do, man. But we're just leading you to the water. A-Hop, the copper no sis, man, dropping, great contribution, man, to the drop today. And just back here to this bro that we got when we started with, man, Booker, Mr. Booker. Yeah, he got some drop on this LA old
if
world.
everyone in the US chose black,
that we can leave you with right here for the flip-flopple dismount, man. Greatest dismount of all time, man. A Los Angeles oldest known photographs, a true old world compilation. Again, he know that we're in the old ancient world, not the new world, my nigga. Hey, we got aqueducts, we got tunnels, antiquitech. Hey, make sure you go hit up Jared Boosters. Couple minutes, and we out of here, baby.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. Many months ago, when my channel was just fledgling and the videos, while entertaining, lacked a narrative, I made a video that was less than 15 minutes long about Old World California. While that video was well received, I knew I had to do a little bit more digging. California, as vast and beautiful as one can imagine, is full of history and thus historical architecture, which we must examine to have a full grasp of the area at that time that we would consider to be the Old World. One of the most popular and thus interesting locations in all of California is Los Angeles, the city of angels. In my previous video about Cali, we lacked the direction that I wanted to have, but in today's video, we are going to focus on a selection of nearly 200 old world images of Los Angeles, California from before World War II. These images are going to be hand-selected by me as some of the most interesting, rare, and downright unexplainable photographs of LA with a focus on the pre-1900 era. We will begin with a brief recap of the current narrative of the history of California, accompanied by some of the very earliest pictures of specifically the Los Angeles area. We will follow that with the narrative into more modern times and wrap up the video focusing on the unique architecture and antiquitech around Los Angeles in the late 18 and early 1900s.
And as you look at this stuff, know that they didn't build none of this, man. They just moved on in. Because you saw what Kyle Elijah was looking like. That was flooded in Benson, right? They had beautiful schools looking like this already. All Nagarville, my naga. All Nagarville. Dismount season.
Los Angeles was originally inhabited by the Tongva and Chumash tribes, respectively. These indigenous groups occupied the California coast for at least 11,000 years, from at least 7,000 BC. Sites like Milling Stone Horizon show evidence that these native groups had intricate systems of survival and trade, including the use of many different seeds. They used these for survival, for food, but also to create variously colored art and dyes. The name Chumash itself actually means bead maker. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The native peoples of California, the Tongva and the Chumash, had a great period of growth from roughly 950 AD until 1300, which was called the medieval warm period. This brought greater resources to California with an increase in temperature, so basically there were better weather conditions for crop growth. Interestingly, before this medieval warm period, many historians believe the Chumash were visited by the Polynesians sometime around 600 to 800 AD. This Polynesian excursion to the New World would predate Christopher Columbus's arrival by nearly 800 years. Vast similarities between the native groups of California and the Polynesians exist. from not only language, but we also have more concrete items, including the sewn plank canoe, a design upon European settlers' arrival to America that was only found in one area, and that was California. However, this sewn plank canoe design was used specifically by the Polynesians before this time, and it had not been seen anywhere that the Polynesians had not visited, which leads the historians to make the assumption that ancient California tribes and ancient Polynesian tribes had a connection to one another. So at this point, the narrative is...
Hey, we're talking Hawaii, right? Talking the Philippines. Let's go.
Alluding to California, and more specifically to the area of Los Angeles being claimed by the Spanish Empire in 1542 by a man named Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo, while he is on an excursion north from previous New Spanish forts. However, at the same time in the narrative, we do reach an interesting hole. While Spain lays claim to California and Los Angeles in 1542, it takes over 220 years for Spanish missionaries to officially reach the land of Los Angeles and begin to set up shop, so to speak. In August of 1769, the narrative says, Gaspar de Portola and Juan Crespi reached Los Angeles for the first time. In September of 1781, the narrative goes on to say, a group of 44 settlers, known as Los Pobladores, founded the pueblo, which they called El Pueblo Nuestra Señora la Reina de los Angeles, aka the town of Our Lady, the Queen of Angels. By 1820, the town was still relatively small, with only 650 residents. 2/3 of these residents were of a mixed ethnicity, with large portions being parts indigenous, Spanish, and African. So while this narrative really only talks about Los Angeles being this agricultural area, we do have New Spain achieving its independence from Spain in 1821, thus creating the free land of Mexico, which includes Los Angeles and California. Los Angeles at this time...
You think the hijack built this building right here, man? Yeah, I'm going to leave it right here. And then, maybe we'll pop off right here, you know what I'm saying? And enjoy this great photography session, man. You think these hijacks with their horse and buggies and carriage was building anything like what you seeing here? Or was it already here when they got here? They call it Tartaria, huh? We call it the ancient world. The ancient world with ancient Nagas making ancient Naga moves. ThaWaDa to my wave surfers surfing the wave, man, making sure we are, focused, man. Focused on our mission, focused on our towel, focused on our sign, focused on our covenant. We keeping the code, and they finding our stuff everywhere. But, our main thing for us to do is to find ourselves. Building this fence is helping us find ourselves, remembering how to build, remember how to be a Naga, to, light a fire, you know what I'm saying? Be indigenous again. And I appreciate everybody's support and vision, and, for seeing the vision and supporting the vision. And I know that the drought won't stop, you know what I'm saying? Because, hey, the water will keep flowing, man. Shout out to all y'all making it flow, continuing to flow. After Shabbat, please continue to flow. We're building a fence for JoiWorld. Shabbat Shalom to the code keepers. Ahab to the 500 code keeping families. Because I know with you, we can build anything. We can do anything. We can build it to last. We got a unified flow. We are in our Tecumseh flow, Hiawatha flow. We are unifying the tribe, and it feels so good. Don't you agree? Shout out to all the cons. Shabbat Shalom.